What up, though? One Pride. This is the ROTL UK podcast, a podcast where one pride goes worldwide. My name is Anthony Fitzpatrick. I'm joined this evening by Ryan McCluskey. It is a Wednesday evening, so as always, you know what that means. We are back for the college football podcast. Shedeur, Woulda, Coulda. Ryan, we finally had our first full weekend of college football. Every team has been in action. FBS, FCS, we've had upsets, we've had giant killings, we've had guys getting stomped on. College football's back, baby. We've had just about everything this weekend, and I, for one, am entirely grateful that it is.
Yep, week one. Just making the picture even more. Like I say, things we thought we knew about teams that we don't know. Some surprise packages have come out of the works, and yeah, larger-than-life characters and some fantastic scorelines. So this is going to be one of the best seasons in recent memory because it's just so wide open. Probably one front runner and then just a bunch of hyenas after them, the rest of the nation.
Yeah, and we've discovered some frauds already as well. Some pretty big frauds, sheep wearing wolves' clothing who have been discovered, they've been found out, and they've been dealt with, and we're going to chat about all that. So today we are just literally reviewing the games from week one, and then we're going to look ahead to the week two fixtures. Let's just shout out everyone in the building on YouTube. Our favourite USC Trojan fan, Megan, is in the building, and she is all the way from the other side of the world, so props to her. She's further away from America than we are. Hope you are doing well, Megan. Brent is in the building, goes, good afternoon, lads. Another catchy title, appreciate that. Go Army, beat Navy, go Blue. Brent, me and you need to have a discussion later, because Army upset me this weekend, and we're going to talk about that in a bit. They are on my list, the first team this year who've made my list that I'm not happy with, so we go off words later, Brent. Chrome's in the building, Barbary Lyons is in the building, Lisa De Lorenzo is in the building. Hope you are all well. A lot of chatter about the Chiefs. Yes, the NFL season does start tomorrow, and I, for one, cannot wait. Just the last stop before we get there. We are going to get the college stuff out of the way, and then we can focus entirely on the Chiefs. But it's going to be good fun. I've seen our friend Mike the Marine in the building on Twitch as well. Hope you are doing well, Mike. Any of you have questions, any games you want to mention from the weekend, any players, just shout them out in the chat, and as always we will go through them as and when I see them. Let's get the housekeeping out the way because we have a lot to talk about. So the ROTL UK Discord, if you want in, let us know, we'll send you a link. Main podcast, we're podcasting pretty much every day this week. Yesterday was our Kansas City Chiefs preview. We had a wonderful guest on from our side of the pond as well, Neil, talking everything Kansas City Chiefs. Then me and Matt had a discussion as well, so if you've not seen that, go check it out. And we did our season predictions on Monday, so if you've not seen all our double-digit, I think we're all double-digit win predictions this season, please do go check that out. It was very entertaining, and of course you will see us a couple more times this week, but I'll mention that in the future shows a bit later. Don't forget to like and sub everything, YouTube, Twitch, all that good stuff. We appreciate the hell out of you all. Don't forget we are a part of Lions Nation Unite, Herman Moore's pet project, to bring together the best in Lions content creators on YouTube and the net. Content by the fans, for the fans. And don't forget we are a Twitch affiliate, we are monetized on YouTube, we got a tip jar, all that good stuff. If you want to contribute to the pod, that would be appreciated, but we just love having you in the building. That is the main thing for us. Right, let's just dive straight down into it, Ryan, because there is a lot to talk about this week. So if a lot of you may not have been with the college pod before, as we do these during the season, I seem to change the format about how we do it every year. This year is no different than others, so I've sort of categorized the games I'm going to talk about today into 4 sections. So we're going to have our slate of main games that we're really going to sort of dig down to the bones and discuss because a lot went on there. Then we're going to visit the upset corner, where all the big teams who have been upset by the small teams are going to get their moment of humiliation in the spotlight as we talk about them. Then I'll talk about the rest of our Pick Watch fixtures. So every week we have a Pick Watch league in our Discord chat. I pick 10 fixtures out, we guess on them all, and then I will review the games the following week to let everyone know how they went on. So any of those that haven't already been mentioned, we'll go through those. And then a new segment I've got this year, we've got the Survivors Corner as well. the teams who nearly got upset by FCS opposition or G5 opposition, and Ryan's team's in that corner this week. Also, quite a few others. There were a lot of near shocks this weekend, so we've got a little bit of a thing going. Got to do some different games, but of course, we're going to talk about the games that have created the most controversy and the most, things to talk about over the weekend. And again, if you've not been with the pod before, the title of the podcast is always named after the team or player of a team that we're going to talk about first. And of course, this week, Shedeur, Woulda, Coulda, we're talking about none other than Shedeur Sanders, the quarterback of one Colorado Buffaloes. And Ryan, if we weren't already sick of the Coach Prime hype train behind this team and them, well, we're in for it, because it's getting 10 times worse on the back of this weekend. We wondered, could they go and upset TCU on the road? It was part of our Pick Watch predictions. And Ryan McCluskey, out of everybody, he was the believer. Despite all of our moanings about Deion Sanders and the way he's handled his business at times, Ryan believed in the Buffaloes, and the Buffaloes repaid their faith in him. Colorado with the road upset, 45 points to 42 over TCU. Both teams, these are the two teams who had the lowest returning production on offense in the nation. I think it was 19% for Colorado. It was 17% for TCU. We talk about teams losing offense. They lost everybody last year. So these were two brand new offenses basically going against one another. And two teams who we know whose defenses are not good. TCU's was not last year. Colorado's was not. I know they've brought in a ton of transfers and basically everybody's new on that defense, so you can forgive them. But I mean, Ryan, we already have a candidate for Game of the Year. This, and I said it when I was in the Discord chat, it was a pleasure to watch this game. Two teams on offense who just went hammer and tong at it with one another. Colorado, who just showed an unbelievable amount of resolve on the road to... I mean, they were ahead to start with by some distance. TCU clawed it back. They started getting ahead, and just every time you thought they were going to inch that little bit forward, Colorado had an answer until it got to the end of the game, and Colorado made the two big plays they needed to on offense and the stop on defense to get this one out. But the floor is yours. You predicted this. Coach Prime, he's made his mark with the Buffaloes already.
See, I'm a firm believer that Shedeur Sanders does not need his dad, but his dad needs him. If this father-son combo was not here, if this was Prime and another quarterback, I don't think it'd have gone as well. But if you put Shedeur Sanders in like any other program, like any of like the top Power 5 teams, I reckon he can still replicate this performance. Yeah, so he announced himself on the FBS stage, and also he plugged himself straight into the Heisman race with his performance. Like I say, he was cooking. Like I say, shout Travis Hunter. I don't normally agree with players playing 110 snaps, including both sides of the ball for the entire game. That's probably not wise, and I don't think he's going to be able to keep that over a 12-game season. But for a debut, yeah, he was pretty damn good. Like I say, he was cooking on offense, and on defense, he made the plays that won the game, essentially. Like I say, in the red zone, he came up clutch. So, yeah, those two just went to work and just hammered on, yeah. And TCU, it was weird. Like I say, because they've lost so much production. Like I say, Chandler Morris was supposed to be the starter last year. Who knows what would have happened if they'd have played last year? Would he have got as far as they did? Would they have done as well if he'd not been placed Max Duggan? So, yeah, and it, like I say, a two and hammer and tossing game back and forth. Like I say, you thought Colorado could run away with it at the start. TCU clawed their way back in. But every time they tried to pull ahead and get away, they made mistakes. Like I say, the turnover-worthy players absolutely killed them and gave Colorado a little bit of life just to cling on to. And in the end, yeah, the big stop that we needed. And Colorado are ranked this week. Probably going to be top 10, top 15. Instantly, they're going to jump into the rankings after this big take. And yeah, I saw it coming. I didn't think it was going to be such a high-scoring game, but for the neutral, honestly, it was pretty much amazing. I reckon it will be a sign of things to come. Colorado are going to have to do a USC and try out score their own defense every week. Quite possibly.
Yeah, this could be a very fun team very quickly, as you mentioned. So let's just dive down into some of the stats for this game and talk about some of the players. So, I mean, Colorado, on offense, you mentioned Shedeur Sanders, 38 of 47, 510 yards and 4 touchdowns. No picks thrown, near flawless game from him. I'm pretty sure he broke the record for passing yards for a Colorado quarterback, and he's only been there one game. He's already a third of the way to the total that the Colorado starter had for the entirety of last season, and he's just about surpassed the backup who had 600 yards in like 3 games. That just shows you how much he had there. The ground game, not so much of a thing. Sevion Wilkerson, 13 carries, 45 yards and a touchdown. Dylan Edwards, 6 carries, 24 yards and a touchdown. They're averaging less than 4 yards a carry on the ground. They identified TCU's weakness, which was in its secondary, and they exploited it. And this is a rarity, Rye. 4 100-yard receivers on the day. Dylan Edwards, 5 receptions, 135 yards and 3 touchdowns. He averaged 27 yards per catch and a touchdown in less than 1 in every 2 receptions. Travis Hunter, 11 receptions, 119 yards. Xavier Weaver, 6 receptions, 118 yards. Jimmy Horn Jr., 11 receptions, 117 yards and a touchdown. I mean, it's not just like Shedeur was throwing to one guy. He just spread it all over the field, and TCU had no idea what to do with it.
No, Xavier Weaver, I think he came out of the portal. He was a really nice pickup after a really good year last year, so he landed well. But yeah, trying to stop one guy getting from like 150 is hard enough, but 4 guys over 100, it's unheard of. If you go back the last 5-10 years, I bet you can count only, I don't know, 15-20 games where you've got like more than 300-yard receivers on a team, just at a guess. And yeah, it's indefensible. You cannot line up. When the offense spreads you out and puts out like a spread formation like that, and your defense is spread from, like say, sideline to sideline, your safeties are both sat deep because they can't come up because they've got to help protect the end zone. There's just space and gaps everywhere. Like I said, there was a total lack of run game, which will have to be fixed if they want to be taken seriously.
Yeah, no, it was
always, but yeah, TCU's secondary when they lost THT to the draft, and I don't really see any true cornerback on there. This is a blueprint for beating the Horned Frogs, unfortunately. It's spread out their defense and passed the ball on them.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, you look at defense on Colorado's side, leading tackler, Shedeur Sanders, his other son. So they're making plays on both sides of the ball. 10 on the day. Obviously, Travis Hunter got 1 interception there, and we need to stop and talk about him in a minute, because it's been asked. Brian Shook asks, how many snaps did he play? He played over 110 snaps in this game. Now, obviously, it's fantastic, and he feels like he can go out there and do it again. But surely there's going to be a worry that down the line that 100 plus snaps a game every week is going to have its toll on him eventually. I mean, he's a fantastic receiver. He's a fantastic corner. But when you start coming up against some of the more physical teams, because, you know, some of these Pac-12 offenses, they're going to test them down the field. They're going to run hard at them. They've got great receivers. They're going to stretch him. Can he carry on being a two-way athlete in terms of even going up to the NFL? Because it just doesn't happen. Obviously, the big talk in baseball at the minute is with Shohei Ohtani. He's the guy who pitches and bats to an elite level on both sides, and it very rarely happens. Can Travis maintain this sort of level of snap count at college and at the NFL? Could it be done?
No. And I don't think... Actually, no, I think Dion would let him, but any normal coach wouldn't let him. And NFL scouts, they won't want to see this. They'll tell him, like, say if he speaks to any agent or scouts, you use this 1 year to decide you're a cornerback or receiver, and next year you play one position. There's no way that you get drafted to be allowed to play two positions. Like I say, he will get hurt. If he thinks he's going to play 100 snaps on both sides of the ball for 12 games, fatigue will catch up with him, or his body will let him down, or he will pick up a serious injury. So yeah, he can't be allowed to do this. It's all fun now and shiny, but yeah, he'll run out of steam. And if he does pick up a serious injury because of it, then if he was allowed to do it and no one put halt to it, then I'd look at people. But no, it's not sustainable, and it will not make him stand out as a pro.
No, not at all. I don't think it's sustainable either. I think it's fun, and I think, even if you are an NFL team, if you are running really low on depth in your corner room, if you've got serious injuries, you can switch him and you can play him there, but I don't want to see him take 100 snaps a week. I think he's a really hard-working kid who's great. I think he could do it, but obviously you want him to be healthy. You want him to have a healthy career and to be the best player he can, but he was fantastic. He just made plays both sides, but he got the interception, so many receptions, so many big chunk plays. Absolutely outstanding. And him and Shedeur are both going to be in the Heisman talk, depending on how Colorado do. But if they keep putting up 45 points a week, they're going to do well, because against some of these trash teams in the Pac-12, they are going to absolutely light them up. We could see 60, 70 burgers dropped frequently. But switch the ball, TCU. So Chandler Morris, 24 of 42, 279 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. More importantly, can't turn the ball over in a game like this. But the running back rooms, they did really well. Amani Bailey, 14 carries, 164 yards for the guy, 12 yards per carry on average. And Trace Sanders is back up, 15 carries, 46 yards, a lot less per carry on average, but 3 touchdowns. Chandler Morris also got a rushing touchdown as well. TCU did find ways to hit them with the running game, and they put it through the air, but when it comes to the turnovers, they're problematic. You've got to cut them out. Colorado State, they had 1 fumble, and that was it. They did lose it. They lost a touchdown on it, but after that, they were pretty much flawless in the way they played. I mean, TCU, it's like last year, right? They look set on offense. I think Morris, it's fine because he's been out a full season. I think you're going to get a little bit of rust, especially when you're coming back into a game like this. But the running back room looks good. They're not missing Miller. Hang on, is it Miller? They're running back from last year. Like I say, Imani Jones looks fantastic. They look like they've got some good room there. If they could just even get semblance of a defense, they could be challenging for the Big 12 again this year. I don't think they're going to, but the offense, they still look pretty decent.
Yeah. I said the Big 12 is bad. So if they're just above average, like say, yeah, they've got a shot at making a title game. And their offense, yeah, perfectly adequate. Chandler Morris knows how to run it because he's a veteran. Defense, that's the issue. Yeah, they've just not reloaded after who's gone. And like I say, the guys are going to have to step up, and they're going to have to pull their socks up. Like I say, it was always going to be a hangover down here, but the defense will decide how bad of a hangover it is, whether it's a 3-day bender or it's a Barocca and you feel fine next week. They've got to shake this week off. Like I say, they've been torched. They've learnt a lesson, turned the ball over. Just forget this one and just go again. Like I say, their season is by not over. Like I say, their only threats in the Big 12, Kansas State and Texas. Like I said, to try and make a title game, so they can still contend in that sense. So, yeah, I think not seen the best of him yet, but it certainly wasn't a good start for their defense.
No, they've got a lot to work on going forward. So, but fair play to Colorado. Fantastic performance from them. They stuck it to the doubters. Dion straight away in the press conference afterwards, picking out all the guys. He keeps his receipts. I'm just glad that we're not a very big show, so no one clips us. There's no receipts to be kept on me, despite me saying that they might struggle there. But yeah, the show rolls on. They've got Nebraska this upcoming weekend. Probably not done talking about them just yet. So well done, Colorado. Excellent performance there. Got a few questions just to quickly go through before we move on. I think Mike specifically asked you one in the Twitch chat. He goes, "What is Ryan drinking? Tall, cool, tasty beverage. What are you drinking tonight, Ryan?"
It's just a John Smith's bitter, but in a nice fancy Erdinger glass. that I got at
Oh, that is prime Britishness there, John Smith. You're not seeing the adverts then. The Peter Kay adverts with John Smith, they're a thing of beauty. They're as British as you'll get. Dan Pascal know what we're on about. Dan Pascal know what we're on about. He's in the chat, I've seen him. And I just need to shout out Dan, actually. He's resubscribed to us, Tier 1 on Twitch. 18 months, he goes, 2 Brit Twitch babies. I saw the Colorado TCU with my mate from Colorado. Crikey, it was glorious goal lines. Yeah, it's a Game of the Year candidate already. That's how great that was. There was also a question from George Cox. He goes, how do you watch college football in the UK? And is it possible to follow just one team and watch all of their games? Me personally, I use YouTube. Every single college football game gets streamed on YouTube, pretty much. I have about 4 different screens up at once, 4 different YouTube screens up, so I can watch them all on my computer. You will see them all there. Sometimes, they'll get interrupted because someone will copyright them, but another one springs up about 10 seconds later. So it's a minor inconvenience, but I can watch any game I want on YouTube. So just do that. Just type in the team, and you will get a stream up for them. And it's usually pretty good coverage as well. So that's what I do, because we don't get it on ESPN or anything no more. But I watched every game I wanted this weekend. You can follow a specific team. You can watch, it's like me, I watch most Arkansas games, watch most NC State games. They're all on there. So you can do that for sure. Or you can go down the illegal streaming route, but I don't know how. So I just use YouTube. Got a lot of chat coming in about Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter looks like the most talented player in the country. Yes, he's a two-way player. He looks a great receiver, looks a great cornerback. Absolutely. He just looks great. Him and Shedeur are in the Heisman race now for sure, if they carry on doing what they do. Mike the Marine says maybe he could be a cornerback and maybe a special offensive package for him at the next level. Yeah, you could do that. You could scheme him in the offense if you want, or vice versa. You could play him as a receiver and scheme him in as a cornerback if you wanted to every now and then, if you need someone who's particularly fast and needs covering because he's just athletically as gifted as they get. Anywho, let us move it on, and maybe this was a shock, Rye. Oh, well, Colorado was a shock, but this next one was probably the biggest shock of them all this weekend. We mentioned last season there were a lot of teams that broke out of their slumber, who, they've not been good for a while. You talk about Kansas, talk about Tulane. There was another team led by one Mike Elko in the ACC, the Duke Blue Devils, who last year made a bowl game in Riley Leonard. They've got a very talented quarterback. Some say outside of the top 2 in this draft, he may be the 3rd ranked quarterback in the entire country. And Duke, did we wonder if it was going to be sort of a minor happy blip for them last year? Were they going to be bad this year? No. They were a muffed punt away from shutting down the Clemson Tigers. They took them down 28 points to 7 in what was an absolute ass-whipping in which Clemson made a lot of mistakes. Duke forced them into making a lot of mistakes. And they played nigh on a perfect game of football. I mean, it was close through 3 quarters. I think it was 13-7 through 3 quarters, and then Duke, they just went ballistic in the 4th quarter. They put down 15 unanswered points, and Mike Elko and Riley Leonard, Ryan, they're for real. Last year was not a blip. Last year was not something. We are maybe looking at a surprise contender for the ACC this year. For as bad as Clemson were, we'll talk about them in a minute, but we've got to give props to Duke. What Mike Elko has done to that program, what Riley Leonard has done for that program, is nothing short of sensational over these last season and a bit.
Yeah, perfect start. And as you mentioned, Mike Elko, already one of the front runners for Coach of the Year. I guarantee he'll be up there when they're picking the award at the end of the year, because he has really won over the players. He's got them all to buy in, and they've done this all without no stars. Other than Riley Leonard, there really are no household names in the current Duke Blue Devils team. I know a lot of them, but not a lot of people can name Duke players. I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like I said, their defense was on fire. They had so many guys with multiple solo tackles. Like I said, Will Shipley still had a great game, and he was still struggling to try and get through the middle. Like I said, they were coming on chunk players, but yeah, they didn't give Cade any time. They were tackling super well in the open field. They stacked the box where it could be. They helped collapse the pocket. And then, yeah, Ryan Leonard was just efficient but not spectacular. But that's kind of what he does. Like I say, Daniel Jones, when he was at Duke, he was efficient, but he wasn't spectacular. And look where it got him. Now, senior people think Ryan Leonard could sneak into the end of the first round, potentially. Like I say, he's had a meteoric rise. And yeah, he was good, protected the ball, and he took his shots where he needed to be. And yeah, it was a perfect performance, complimentary football. And yeah, they forced a lot of errors from Clemson. The Tigers were bad, but Duke definitely deserved to win. It was not a game that was thrown away, that it was well fought and earned win.
And yeah, and that's the entire thing. It comes down to turnovers, because when you look at the stats down on there, so Clemson had 50 more yards than Duke. They had 422 yards in this game. They had more passing yards. They had more rushing yards. They didn't have as many per play. They had 12 more first downs in the game. They had more third down completions. You know, they had 19 more total plays than them on offense, and they had the ball for 8 more minutes in this game. It's like, but those are empty stats. When you're turning the ball over, you fumble the ball twice, you lose the ball twice. Sorry, you fumbled it 4 times, and you lost 3 of them. You only got 1 back. You know, you throw a pick in there as well. These turnovers, and in some costly positions as well, in the Duke half of the field, you know, you put on these drives, you take time off the clock, and then you just hand it over. And in Duke's case, it was just a case of bend, not break, and force the errors out of them. Clemson, just every time it seemed they got near the Duke end zone, there was just something there that didn't quite work with them. Like you said, Will Shipley looked good. He had over 100 yards on the day. I think it was 120. You know, Klubnik had 210 yards in the air. He had a touchdown. You know, it's not awful from this point, but again, a lot of it's just empty when you're turning it over.
Yeah, sloppy. I was not impressed with Cade at all. Like, this is not the start he wanted after filling in for DJ Oungalele, who, yeah, he probably looked at this result and had a little snigger to himself after a lot of stick he got. But yeah, I was super high on the Cade Klubnik here. I thought potential Heisman. Not a good start at all, as you mentioned. A lot of yards, but no real substance. And every time they marched over the halfway line or got towards the 30-40 yard line, they coughed it up. Like I say, so the Duke defense was tired. They were on their heels. They were defending their own goal line or in their own half. And yeah, they'd cough it up and they'd get a nice bit of respite, and then offense would take over. So yeah, Clemson shot themselves in the foot. Like I say, if they convert a few more of those drives, if they hold the ball a little bit well, like I say, it's probably a lot tighter going into that fourth, even right down to the end. They're probably in that contest, but yeah, they've got no one to blame for themselves, and playoff hopes are over. Before they've even begun, Clemson now, with this loss on their resume, even if they win the ACC championship, I think they won't make the playoffs.
I mean,
this will be held against them.
It's an in-conference defeat, isn't it? Unless Duke were to go on and win the whole thing, win the Atlantic full stop, and then then you can say, well, it's a quality loss, but the odds are that they might not. But in terms of Clemson, I mean, it all comes back to the argument here. So you talk about the head coach. He doesn't believe in NIL. He believes in God's NIL, as they say. They don't like to use the portal. They don't like to bring in new talent. Is this a case of they're falling behind now because all these other big teams are taking advantage of the portal? These teams coming out of nowhere are taking advantage of the portal. Is he going to have to relent on this stance if he wants to stay in a job? Because it looks like they're so far off the pace at this moment in time.
Oh, they're going to have to be. The amount of talent they've lost in the last few years to the draft. Like I said, they've just lost their star linebacker. They'll lose their 2 star safeties and their 2 linebackers this year. He probably won't go to the portal to replace them. Right now, they've got an amazing defense that's about to be broken up. They've not replaced the receivers in the last few years. Like guys like Justin Ross and that have gone. I've not seen adequate replacement for them. They were lucky to have such a good quarterback ready to take over from DJ as a freshman. Otherwise, what would have happened in that scenario too? Would they have gone to the portal? Would they have brought someone in? I'm not convinced they would. So, yeah, they've got the spine of a team, but I see the lack of explosive talent.
Yeah, it's going to be a big problem for them going forward. They've got to change the way they go about things. But, enough of them. Duke. I mean, people going to have to take notice of them now. This schedule of theirs is brutal. So they play Lafayette next, their FCS game. Then they play Northwestern, which is, guaranteed dub, given how bad they are. Then you've got UConn and Notre Dame, so your out-of-conference gets harder, because this was an in-conference game, so they've still got their 4 non-cons to play. But then when you come to the Atlantic, you're playing NC State, Florida State, Louisville, Wake Forest, and UNC. I mean, it's a brutal run of games, but I mean, if you can beat Clemson, you can beat NC State. And if you can beat NC State, you then travel to Tallahassee to play Florida State. I mean, from what you've seen of this team, I think they could go there, and if it goes right for them on the day, they could win that game. I genuinely think they're in with probably a possibility of going for it now. They're going to have to do it the hard way, because they're all really good teams, but the floor is there for them if they want to take it and announce themselves now.
Yeah, by the time they get to that team, they could be 6-1 before they get to Florida State, say depending on Notre Dame, but they could well be in the ACC title race going into Tallahassee, and that game will be super important. There could be a lot on the line in that game. Playoff implications for the winner of the ACC could very much hang in the balance depending on the winner or loser. I can't wait for the Notre Dame game on Sky, because I expect them to be unbeaten. Both teams could have a good chance of being unbeaten, and that could easily be a ranked matchup at the time. So if their schedule is going to be difficult, but there's going to be a lot of games here that could be moved around to TV, prime time. Duke are going to have a fun year. They've got a good chance at ending the year in the top 25 for sure.
Yeah, I think so as well. And, I'm just looking forward to seeing them every week now. I've been sceptical about them for a long time. I think they're good, but it's, when a team's not been great for so long, you're like, is there a ceiling? Is there going to come a part where they fall apart? But no, I mean, they haven't. And fair play to them. I'm thoroughly impressed, and I'm beginning to become a believer in them. So, again, just like Colorado, incredibly well done to Duke. We appreciate that. We're on board with you now, so we're looking forward now. Hopefully big things for that team this season. Right, so those were the 2 main games that we wanted to dive down into. So we're now going to take a look at the upset corner for the first time this year, because there were some big upsets this week. Some that we really didn't see coming. No more so than a certain former power in the Big 12 who just seemed to be dropping at a rate of knots. If you hung with the college podcast during the off season when we were doing all the previews, one of the titles of the Sunbelt preview was Kinney Get It Done, meaning J.G. Kinney at Texas State. I was a believer in him as a coach and as his team. He's going to a Texas State team which has showed some promise but has not quite delivered on it. They walked into the home of Baylor, Ryan, and absolutely slapped them. 42 points they dropped on the Bears to the Baylor's just 31 in what is one of the biggest upsets all told this week. They were 28-13 up. They started aggressively and they didn't let up, and they were led by someone we have, ridiculed a lot during his time in the SEC on here. We said there was a two-way fight for the quarterback job there, and it was won by TJ Finley, former Auburn quarterback of all those years. And man had himself a game, 22 of 30, 298 yards, 3 touchdowns. The running game, Ishmael Mahdi had 6 carries for 83 yards and a touchdown. Finley had a rushing touchdown. Jamil Jeter had a touchdown. He had receptions from guys all over the field. Joey Hobart, lead guy, 6 receptions, 105 yards and a touchdown, and their defense helped them out as well. You had 3 sacks in this game. You had a pick as well in there. I mean, can he get it done, Ryan? I mean, early indications say yes, he can.
Yeah, huge upset. With cue ball, Dave in Baylor is on a hot seat. Actually, a red hot seat. The Bears in the last 2 years have been bad. They are on a serious nosedive. And yeah, the crowds are suffering. The fans are not happy. Like I said, they lost their starter now for the next month, which may or may not be a bad thing. Like I say, we'll see depending on how the season goes. But yep, Texas State went in there and they laid an ass whooping on them. Like I said, Baylor's known for their defense, but we didn't really see any of it. And like I say, TJ Finley, up until today, now, has struggled everywhere else. Like I say, known as a rushing quarterback, has struggled to see the field at some programs, struggled with inconsistencies or not even won the starting job at others. Didn't ever plan to be at a school like Texas State, but I'm pretty sure they're damn glad to have him now. And this could be the kind of fairy tale that we keep an eye on this year, see how they do. Yeah, fantastic win, and it was the first of 2 big eye-catching results.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You look at the Texas State defense. You said Baylor are known for it, but they come into this one, they drop a 13% havoc rate down in there. So you have 9 tackles for loss, 4 against the pass, 5 against the rush, 3 sacks, an interception. They made life difficult. Obviously, quarterback goes off hurt because he's getting hit so much, Blake Chapman. Sawyer Robertson comes in as backup. He was 6 of 12 for 113 yards and a pick, so he had a few big plays, but didn't do anything about it. But you look at the Baylor team, it was a 12% havoc rate, was good, but they had 8 tackles for loss, just 2 in the passing game, just 1 sack. You're used to them getting a lot more pressure on the quarterback than this. Texas State took their lumps a bit in the running game, but TJ Finley just sat back there in a mostly clean pocket and pick them apart, which, as you say, for this team, it just doesn't happen a lot.
No, we think of defensive fronts for Baylor. Just lost Siaki Ika, their lead defensive anchor, and he definitely looked like they were missing him. He was usually a stalwart in that middle and could generate pressure, and yep, there were nothing coming through the middle. That Texas State pocket, pretty much untouched all there. And TJ Finley, who's got some escapability, he can do it with legs when he needs to be. He didn't need to. Like I said, for once he could just sit back and he could just take shots and pick a team off. So, yeah, someone let him be very comfortable on the day. But, yeah, Baylor now in a world of trouble. Like I said, I'm not sure how they rectify this issue. Like I said, lost their starter, licking their wounds after a huge upset. It's going to be a rough old season for the Bears, and Dave's job is very much in trouble. I'll be surprised if he lasts a year, if they have a rough year.
I was about to say, do you think he's going to last, until the end? But, I mean, if they lose a couple more, especially in the non-cons when they're not particularly difficult, I mean, we could see him maybe gone halfway through the season. Maybe, could we? I think we could.
Yeah, like I say, he came into the season under pressure, because last year they really struggled. And like I say, he's coming off some good years as well. Like I say, 2-3 years ago, they were playing really good football, and they had some really good players that got drafted. And since then, it just looks like a shell of them for himself. So, yeah, I think they'll move on in the off season if he makes it that far.
Yeah, it's rough times, absolutely there for the Baylor Bears. They need to rebound from this quick. But we're talking about teams who are on their way down in the Power 5. I mean, there's one team who's down at the bottom and getting stamped on at this point. They are so far down the pecking order now in the Power 5. They may as well be a G5 school at this point, and I've put them on upset alert this weekend in their FCS game. But BC, Boston College, I mean, what a show this is turning out to be for them. You thought maybe it couldn't get any worse last year. They were the worst team in the Power 5, I think it's safe to say, maybe by some distance as well. And you're thinking, are they going to come into this year? Are they going to be refreshed? Can they get it up? They've got a MAC opposition at home to start with. No, I know one Ryan Dengle from Bear Down Report is going to be incredibly happy because he's the world's biggest Northern Illinois fan, and Northern Illinois, they not only did they go on the road to Boston College, they came back with the win. It took till overtime, which Boston College were lucky to get it that far. They got a touchdown right at the very end to save their skins. Got into overtime, kicked a field goal, and then Northern Illinois put down a touchdown on them, and wham bam, thank you ma'am, that's all she wrote. Upset, G5 over the Power 5. I mean, is this even an upset at this point, Ryan? Northern Illinois, they won the MAC a couple of years ago. They were bad last year. I think we knew they were going to be. That MAC winning team had 8 games where they won by a score. That was never going to happen. You had to rebuild a little last season. And it wasn't a great year for them, but they've got some good players in there. They built up last year, and they have the kind of talent where they can pick off low-hanging fruit in the Power 5 like Boston College, and they look good in this game.
Yeah, it wasn't a huge upset. Did you see the photos of the stadium?
It was empty.
Empty.
It was.
The fans
it was
just
barren.
Yeah, it was bad. And the joke, they're probably glad they didn't go. And all this is a culmination of a team that, under Phil Jerkovic and Zay Flowers 2 years ago, was cooking. Them two were just a dynamic threat. Last year, Zay was still cooking. Phil got hurt, had a bad year, left the team. I think last year they played last 4 or 5 games like a true freshman that was just totally out of his depth, and it wasn't fair. But BC were bad last year. Weren't great the year before, and this year expectations right now are at an all-time low, and that said a lot about the attendance. The fans are just finding something else to do. They've just lost their joy in watching BC football, and they just served up another shit sandwich for the poor folk that actually attended. Full credit for NIU, got dragged into a proper ugly brawl, and came out of it on top, and they claimed a huge scalp, and it was back and forth. It was not pretty at times, but in the end, they got the job done. And at BC, such a downward trajectory. This season could get bad. It could get ugly. But NIU, great non-con win. And for the fans that travel as well, it's not a huge trip. Like you say, it's a decent road trip. So all the fans there must have been super happy.
Yeah, I mean, just take a listen to some of these stats there with these guys. Quickly before I do, I've seen Megan. She goes, I'm heading out. We'll catch you on replay. Fight Trojans always. Thanks for joining us, Megan. Hope you have a wonderful day, and hopefully you enjoy the rest of the playback later on, but glad to have you in the building there. Just listen to these stats, some of them. So their expected points per play was minus 0.17. It's 20th percentile. Yards they gained per play, so they only gained 4.2 yards per offensive play. That's 12th percentile. Yards on every play the quarterback dropped back, it was just 3.4 yards. That's 10th percentile. Explosive play rate, 6%. It's 25th percentile. Third down success rate, just 33%. That's also 25th percentile. Havoc rate, 5%, which is 13th percentile. Run stuff rate, 26%. 28th percentile. Red zone success rate was just 20%. It's 15th percentile. I mean, you're going up against MAC opposition here as a Power 5 school. You can't break the 30th percentile of any stat on offense or defense whatsoever. This was all round a bad team. It wasn't just the defense was keeping them in it. The defense was not great. There was no tackles for loss in the passing game. They had 6 in the rushing game, but no passing tackles for loss. No sacks, no turnovers of any. There was one fumble that they lost. That is it. I mean, that's just rock bottom. With all due respect, coming up against MAC opposition, you're a Power 5 school at home. You shouldn't be anywhere near those figures.
Boston College football has lost its identity. It's got no identity anymore. Is it a passing offense? No, it's not. Is it a running game? No. And I think of Boston College for years gone. I think of offensive linemen.
Yeah.
They've produced loads of great offensive linemen. And tight ends, blocking tight ends, they were a powerhouse up front. Like I said, the drop back rate was not good. Passes, not good when the QB is dropping back or trying to step into the pocket, not getting protection. Like I said, defense, defense wasn't terrible, but like I say, it crumbled when it counted, despite not facing a huge barrage of offense on the other side. No identity, and it's a team right now that is going nowhere, no places. They're not getting recruits, they're not getting the transfers they need because players are looking at them and thinking, I don't want to go and play in that brand of football. They did not replace Phil Jerkovic, who they were lucky to keep hold of so long. Like I said, Zay Flowers, their star. I can't believe he stayed that long. And like I say, he reaped the rewards, but he could have played at a much bigger school. He could have been competing for national titles, not sucking at the basement last year. He showed proper loyalty to them. And that takes a lot. But right now, this team is barren of anyone that's going to stand up and be counted for. And I have no idea how many games they'll win this season. No. If they'll win any, they'll probably win some, but I reckon they're going to look.
They'll get swept in the Atlantic. I fully believe they'll get swept in the Atlantic. I don't think they're going to win any in-conference games. It's probably going to come against non-cons, but I'm going to mention this later because they've got their FCS game this weekend, and they've got noted FBS killers. This team they're coming up against, we'll talk about later, have won their last 2 games against FBS opposition, so they know how to do it. So this is not the last you've heard of Boston College today. Right, let's move it on to, I call this a happier upset. This is a happier upset because it was just a tremendous game, and fair play to the winners here. And I mean, we talk about coaches maybe getting coach of the year, talk about Mike Elko, but after everything he lost in the off-season after winning a championship last year, Jeff Tedford has not missed a beat, Ryan. Fresno State, we wondered whether the losses on that team would... I mean, they lost their quarterback, who was generational quarterback for them. They lost star wide receiver, star running back, most of the offensive line, like all the good parts of their defense gone. It was gutted to shreds. And they go to Purdue in their own backyard, 39-35, pick them off in a high-scoring big game, which was an awful lot of fun here. I mean, we were looking forward to seeing Purdue this year because obviously the new transfer in Hudson Card, we're very excited for what he's going to do at quarterback. And let's just say straight away, this isn't on him. This is on a defense. You shouldn't be giving up 40 points to a Mountain West team if you are a Power 5 school again. But we know Purdue have been vulnerable. They've had a good offense for years now. The defense has not been good, and that came home to roost in this one. Let's go through Fresno State first. Mikey Keene, he's been the backup there for a long time for Jake Hayner, waiting for his opportunity. 31 of 44, 366 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 pick to blemish it slightly, but overall a wonderful game from him. The running game, I mean, not really there. They didn't need to. They just picked on Purdue's secondary. Elijah Gilliam had 20 carries for 93 yards, but outside of that, no one got over 20. The receivers went off. Eric Brooks, I don't know if that's the same Brooks who played at Oklahoma who I'm thinking of, but he had 9 receptions, 170 yards and 2 touchdowns on the day. Jalen Gill, 8 receptions, 65 yards and a touchdown. Jalen Moss, 5 for 38 and a touchdown. Trey Watson had 4 for 40 there. And this was a game devoid of offense. I mean, devoid of defense, Ryan. I meant between two teams who are known for having high-powered scorers. And this is one of the fun college football games. They don't really care what they're doing on defense, but these just two teams going to go and sling the ball at one another. And Fresno State, I mean, what an impressive win for them, given everything they lost in the off-season.
Yeah. Like I say, I put Hudson Card in my pre-season to watch team. It was okay, but it was not game for you to see. He was alright, but I expected more, especially against the Mountain West defense, if I'm honest. So I was a little bit disappointed. But yeah, the Purdue defense, those chickens have come home to roost. Years of lack of attention, not doing well, getting carried by Aiden O'Connell and their receivers and their tight ends and their offense, and it kind of was exposed. I did not expect this all Fresno State. They're going to firmly be in the Mountain West title race, which I did not anticipate at the start of the season. But yeah, it was one of those games where whoever had the ball last or whoever scored last was going to win. Back and forth, like I say, Mikey Keene just was devastated. Like I say, he spread the ball around. He made one small blip, but on the day, perfect. Couldn't have played a better game. And yeah, it was a committee of receivers spread the ball around, led by like Brooks. But yep, oh boy, does that Purdue defense need some work. If I'm their head coach, I would blast in them, especially in the locker room after that. That was a bad performance. But yeah, another big upset, and just two teams here not playing all the complimentary football. Like I say, Fresno State got the stop when they needed it to see out the game. Like I say, they won the game in the end, but neither team will be overly enamoured with what they played with on the defensive side of the ball. But yeah, if they can just tweak the defence, Fresno State, like I say, and just sharpen it up a little bit, they will firmly be in their own conference race. Like I say, the head coach again just finds ways to win despite losing all that production.
And it did come down to defence in this one. So for Purdue, they allowed a 60% third down success rate for Fresno State. So they were great on third down. Conversely, Purdue were only 29% on third down. That's what it all came down to. Third down football. Purdue had to punt it away more times because they couldn't convert the drives, where Fresno kept it going. The defensive run stuff rate was 23% for Purdue. That's 17th percentile. The havoc rate was just 6%. That's 21st percentile. The stop rate, so your ability to stop drives without giving points away, 15% for Purdue. They just couldn't stop drives. Fresno State just kept getting points on the board and kept the scoreboard ticking, and eventually that's ultimately what wins it. And that's awful. When you can't stop a Mountain West offense, which is brand new in a lot of schemes, it's trouble all across the board. So, not great for them. I mean, the Purdue offense, Hudson Card, he was 17 of 30, 254 yards, 2 touchdowns, clean day in terms of turnovers. Dion Burks, excited to see him, 4 receptions, 152 yards and 2 touchdowns. He averaged 38 yards per catch. Hudson's found his deep field threat already, and those two are probably going to stick up some stats this season, even in a Purdue team which is going to give away a lot of points. So yeah, well done Fresno State. You've surprised me a little bit there, and let's see, maybe they can go for the Mountain West again. Who knows? I don't know if either of us had them in there. I don't think we did. I think we all had Air Force in there, and I had San Jose State, you had another team, so who knows? Maybe they're going to make us look silly. We shall see. The last upset, the big one here, I don't know. This is maybe the most surprising of all. I don't know what to make of this team from year to year, because they're just all over the place. But the Wyoming Cowboys, Big 12, it was not a good weekend for them. They upset the Texas Tech Red Raiders after 2 portions of overtime. The game ends up being 35-33 to Wyoming. And, every time Texas Tech thought that, they were 17-0 up after the first quarter, and you thought, oh, here we go. They're just going to absolutely run away with this one. And then they didn't score in the second quarter. Wyoming, over quarters 2 and 3, they went 17-0. So that 17-point lead Texas Tech put up in the first quarter, they'd lost by the end of the third without putting up a point. They exchange a field goal in the fourth, so they go in at 20 apiece. Overtime 1, they both score touchdowns, and then in overtime 2, both score touchdowns again. Texas Tech go for the 2 points, fail. Wyoming go for the 2 points, they get it. So Texas Tech, they get a touchdown, but they have to go for 2 points to tie it up. Did not complete the pass there, and Texas Tech, we talk about Baylor having trouble, right? I mean, Texas Tech, this could be big trouble for them. They lost a lot in the draft this year. They lost a lot again to the portal as well, and Wyoming are a mid-Mountain West team at the minute. They're not the standard bearers in that conference, but this is a huge win for them. Given they were down so much so early, and then they have to go through 2 sets of overtime as well to come out with the win there. That's a hell of a win for them, and a hell of a bad week for the Big 12.
Yeah, it summed up the Big 12 this week. Texas Tech is such a weird team, because like I said, last year they played like 2 or 3 quarterbacks, and at times they looked really good and really competitive. Like when they had Donovan at quarterback, they looked really good. They looked strong. They had a decent run game with Sir Roderick Thompson, who's now in the draft. Obviously, they lose their star edge rusher, like I say, who was the heart and soul of that defense. Lost their best linebacker. But Tyler Shook is no slouch. Like I say, he's been around now for a couple of years. Like I say, he knows the system really well. I think he's been like at Oregon. He's a good quarterback. Had a pretty big day, but yeah, they just went to sleep, didn't they? Started hot, went to sleep, decided to finally wake up, force overtime, and then in overtime, like I said, 2-point conversions, more often than not, they're about luck, and their luck ran out. But yeah, Wyoming, a middling side at best. Like I say, after they tore the line of like, just let's get bowl eligibility. But yeah, huge win for them. Like I say, just to go so long and outlast the Big 12 side. Massive kudos to them. Texas Tech, what I'd say a fairly wide-ish open Big 12. The big setback, if they had any intentions of making a run, it's not a good start. Not after watching TCU fall, watching Baylor fall. Like I say, they could have really kind of jump-started their season if they'd have seen this game out, but no. I think they'll bounce back, but yeah, disappointing from a team that a lot of neutrals like to watch.
And ironic from one of the conferences, which are part of the reason the Pac-12's fallen to bits. And the Pac-12 went perfect this weekend. I think they said for the first time since the 80s. They were like 12,
I think they're the only
13. No, they're the only, yeah.
Perfect.
Everybody completely perfect in the Pac-12, and it's falling to bits. And like the Big 12 and they have lost to some serious G5 competition this year. I think they're in a deficit against them. That's just how bad a weekend it's been for the Big 12. But yeah, I mean, talk about so Tyler Shaw, 31 of 47, 338 yards, 3 touchdowns and an interception. I mean, the run game, they could not get the run going. They had 26 carries, 27 carries, and it went for about 90 yards. You know, they're averaging about 3 yards per carry. They got 1 touchdown there, but when you're so one-dimensional, you know, you're putting it on the quarterback, he's going to throw picks, he's going to make mistakes there, and it's not like Wyoming were not that good, so they had 111 yards less offense than Texas Tech did. You know, they had nearly 200 less passing yards than them. It was on the ground they did it. They sort of burned the clock. Wyoming had 34 minutes of possession. Texas Tech had 25, but they had less in every statistical category. But it just shows the old adage, right? You control the clock, you can overcome a power imbalance when it comes to offenses and skill. You may not be as good, but if you make the most with the extra time you get, fine margins will win you games like this.
Yeah, I think they knew in the end, like, say, if they dragged it into overtime, it was their best chance of winning, and they did. And then when it gets, like, say, college overtime rules, everything goes out the window. It's basically a penalty shootout, innit? I score a touchdown, you score a touchdown. We miss, we win with a field goal. Like you say, you go back and forth, like you say, and it's a sudden death. So the rules in college football neutralise who's the best team, who's the small team. It kind of levels the playing field. Anyone can score a touchdown from that far out, and you just go back and forth till someone misses. That's why I love the overtime rules in college. I don't care how long it takes. You will find out the team that can outlast the other and who can keep dialing up impressive plays despite being so close to the goal line. It comes down to coaching over time. Keeping a defense guessing constantly in a red zone is probably the hardest thing you can do because your playbook is really small when you're at that yardage line. So yeah, kudos for them. And to go for 2 points, like I say, and get it done just shows bollocks.
Exactly. I cannot put it any better than that. Yeah, they have balls. They went for it all and they got it. So well done, Wyoming. So yeah, we've had a lot of shocks this weekend, and they were some of the real big ones out there. So we're going to dive down into the pick watch games now, and then we'll finish off with the near upsets. But first, before we do, we've had a first time chat on Twitch from DarkSage9117. He goes, interesting question for this panel regarding college football. Says, I'm a Michigan Army fan, went to college in Ann Arbor, but I have always wanted to see Army do well. I am curious to you, the playoffs expanding, if you guys ever see a path for Army or Navy to get into the college football playoffs someday. Do you ever see that, right? College playoffs expanding? Can you see a service team fighting their way in to the college football playoffs?
No, never.
So even if Air Force were to win the Mountain West, say they swept it and they were, the G5 team in the New Year's Six Bowl, could they? I think it relies on one of the service teams being that good.
It does, yeah. Probably might say Army Navy. Well, not being part of conferences, no, they're just never going to make playoffs. Until they win a conference championship, they can never make like a 14-man playoff. As independents, no, it will never happen because they will not have that credential. But I would like to see one day all the independents disbanded. You're all going to a conference, whether you like it or not. You're all going to or form your own conference. Get rid of the independents, like I said. What are you playing for? Like I say, Navy should be like, do you know what? We think we could win the Sun Belt. Let's join them. Let's have a go. I understand being able to schedule your own schedule constantly and being totally free in control. But no.
Yeah, I mean, for Army, they would. Navy currently in the Americans still, and Air Force are in the Mountain West. But I agree with what you say about Army. They have to join a conference if they want to do that. But I think if one of them could win it and win a conference title, Air Force could really do it in the Mountain West in the next few years if they carry on doing the way they are. I think they could.
One day in the future, the playoffs be all division winners.
Yeah.
You know what? One day they might be like, let's have a go. Everyone that wins a division, you're seeded, and we'll just throw you all. Let's see what happens. You might get a crazy upset. Sun Belt beats a Pac-12 champion or something like that. That's probably one way it happens.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Not this decade. I don't know if the next, but one day.
Yeah, but obviously the service teams have the massive problem at the minute where they've got to try and bypass the banning of the chop blocks and everything because obviously it ruins the way you play triple option.
Yes, like I said, like mad 24 playoff teams. If that ever comes in, absolutely, we'll see a service team in the playoffs.
Yeah. So I think we agree. One, they've got to be part of a conference, and two, they've got to win it. So if Air Force can win the Mountain West, absolutely, but I think we may be a ways off that just yet. But we really appreciate your question. If you've got anything else you want to ask us, please do so. That was fun chat. So, right, we will move on to the third slate of games. So the Pick Watch games. So obviously the 10 games we pick in the college Pick Watch. As per usual, I am at the bottom because I let my heart rule my head when it comes to these decisions, but it's the whole fun of doing it. Ryan is currently top of the pile at the minute. He had a 7-3 record this weekend just gone. Mine, conversely, was flipped around at 3-7 because a lot of teams, including Army, Brent, let me down this weekend. But we talked about Colorado and TCU. They were on the schedule there, and I think we've got 9 others in there as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm missing one somewhere, but I will find them. The first one that I let get to me, the Florida Gators traveling to Utah. Spent last week talking about how Florida, great on defense. You know, they've got a lot of good players on there. The offense, Graham Mertz has gone there to be quarterback, which is probably one of the most baffling decisions in all of football this year. He is not good, let alone an SEC caliber starter on there, and they, I mean, in fairness, he did all right, but they had absolutely no semblance of a run game. They were playing from behind. They made a lot of mistakes. Utah beat them fairly comfortably, 24-11 in the end, and that was without Cameron Rising, and it was without Brent Kuithe as well. One of their top offensive weapons and their quarterback, and they still made this look like a cakewalk. Graham Mertz went 31 of 44, 333 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, which was absolutely atrocious. The run game, Trevor Etienne had 7 carries for 25 yards. I mean, if you take Mertz's sack yards into account, they had 10 rushing yards on the day. Just 10. That was all they could muster on the ground. They got absolutely destroyed in the trenches. Bryson Barnes Cam Rising's replacement. Solid game, 12 of 18, 159 yards and a touchdown. They were steady on the ground. The top two rushers were going at 7 yards per carry on average. That was McCarp, Bernard, Nate Johnson. Money Parks had that big-ass receiving play. He had one reception for 70 yards and a touchdown. And the Utah defense, Ryan, we know how potent it is. Went to work. Colt Bishop, the star safety, a sack, 11 tackles. Jonah Ellis, 2 sacks on the day. Keanu Tanavasa, 1 sack. Logan Farno, sack. They just basically put a bullseye up on Graham Mertz, and they went and hit him a hell of a lot of times because Florida couldn't block shit. They're a really bad team right now, and Utah picking right up where they left off.
Yep, I was impressed. Utah really short-handed, and the defense stood tall, and they gave their offense not a lot to do. Like I say, Barnes, I didn't know about the backup. Fine, led by a run game that just made mincemeat of that spine of Florida. They just chopped right through them. They made it look easy in the end. And yeah, I'm saying now, Graham Mertz is one of the worst Power 5 quarterbacks in the nation. 355 yards and nothing to show for it. He was dog shit at Wisconsin. And why on earth? Obviously, he's done really well to the land of Florida, but no one wanted him there. He's terrible. All that yardage and nothing to show for it. Like I say, it's stat padding. Like I say, it's just powder. It's just powder cake numbers. It don't mean anything. He ain't doing nothing in that Florida offense. Not even my boy, like I say, Ricky Pearsall could bail him out multiple times, and he still had himself a decent day as the leading receiver. But no, the Gators are not going nowhere with Mertz and the center. No,
it was just pathetic. You wonder, he got a starting job in the SEC. Peyton Thorne got a starting job in the SEC. It's like, what does the SEC in these very mid/bad Big Ten quarterbacks? I just don't get what he did to deserve a job there.
Not He'd have been an upgrade of Graham Mertz.
Instead, he goes on his way to Iowa because Iowa are that offensive powerhouse that everybody knows and loves. Oh dear God, right. Let's move it on because we're not going to talk about Florida any longer because they're not worthy of our time at this moment. And let's go to this was nearly an upset. Louisville. I am not touching them with a barge pole again this season when it comes to betting on college football games. We talked about them last week. We actually thought they were going to be quite decent this year. Thought, maybe post Malik Cunningham era, they might try and be a bit more diverse as an offense. The defense might get its act together. No, they just decided they were going to be the same team that they've always been. Ran the ball a hell of a lot, threw the ball a hell of a lot, and the defense is absolutely rotten. They defeated the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets 39-34, and they were down big at halftime. They were 28-13 down at one point. Georgia Tech just ran ragged on them in the second quarter. They put 28 points down on them in a quarter and then went quiet. But it's our old mate, Haynes King, the Texas A&M quarterback of yesteryear, went to Georgia Tech, and they seem to be finally trying to drag themselves away from the triple option of old. He went 19 of 32, 313 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick, but they had 3 guys who had over 50 yards on the ground. Trevion Cooley had 2 rushing touchdowns in there. He spread the ball around significantly to 6 different receivers. This is an offense that is a lot different to what we've seen of the Georgia Tech in recent years. And Louisville, we know what they're going to do. Jack Plummer's the new quarterback there, 18 of 31, 247 yards, 3 touchdowns and an interception. Their run game was also really good. Jawad Jordan was going at nearly 14 yards a carry. He had 7 carries for 96 yards and a touchdown. Plummer, the quarterback, he had 51 yards on 9 carries. They had 4 other guys take snaps at running back as well. Jamari Thrash and Kevin Coleman, talked about those two. They're going to be menaces this year. Jamari Thrash had 7 receptions, 88 yards, 2 touchdowns. He could be a Biletnikoff candidate this year, I feel like. And it's another game where offense kind of ruled in this one. And I was really shocked by how much of a fight Georgia Tech put up on this. And I might have to reevaluate them as a result of this year. Louisville scraped out of this, and some would say they didn't deserve to win it.
Interesting game. Like, Louisville deserve credit for digging themselves out such a big hole. But the fact they put themselves in that hole anyway, despite actually upgrading with a more pro-style quarterback, was interesting. I agree, Thrash and Plummer could actually make quite a deadly combination this year. Their defense was garbage. Do you want to take a funny? Because I saw how their old quarterback, Jeff Sims, did this weekend, and it was not good. It was one of the worst. It was bad. And it's interesting to see that they kind of left that style behind and went to a more pocket passer. And it worked. They did lose, and they blew a healthy lead. Actually, Georgia Tech should be really pissed. 28-13 up at the half and lost. Nah, that's not good enough. But offensively, they'll be better this year. They'll be better than they have been for the last few years. They should be a lot better. But their defense needs to improve. And yeah, Louisville, just wake up and start faster. Your defense cannot afford to give the other team's offense, a 15-point head start at the half. Yeah, so Louisville dodged a proper bullet here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not going near them again. If I have them in the pick watch, I'm going to be very, very picky about who I have them against if I do. But yeah, fair play, Louisville, you came back. But Georgia Tech, colour me impressed. I'm going to see what you do for the rest of the year. Someone I was not impressed by, which is a shame because I've really been on their hype this year. Hawaii, the Rainbow Warriors. I had them upsetting Stanford, maybe bad on my hindsight. Ryan, despite the plethora of evidence I tried to convince him with to them meanwhile, because Stanford have just lost everything on their offense, but it didn't matter. Stanford won 37 points to 24 in Hawaii, and this Hawaii team were in such a bad spot last year. Now, their offense is really good. Braden Schrager is the leading passer in the nation with over 700 yards already after 2 games. He was 30 of 53, 355 yards and 3 touchdowns. Pofele Ashlock, he had over 100 yards last week. He had 114 yards and 2 touchdowns this week. And again, Stephen McBride, he had 2 touchdowns last week against Vanderbilt. He got another touchdown this week as well. Timmy Chang, he's implemented his passing offense there and it does really well. But we said how bad the running game was. They had 6 carries for 9 yards. That was it. They just put it in Braden's hands and they told him to go to work. Now, maybe that's quite specific towards Stanford. The secondary is not good, and obviously there was holes to be exploited there. But while your offense is so one-dimensional, you're going to have issues. And Stanford had the ball for 12 minutes longer in this because Hawaii weren't running the ball, and that's ultimately what it comes down to. But Stanford, fair play to them. Ashton Daniels, he was the freshman there, I believe, last year. Not played much. 25 of 36, 248 yards, 2 touchdowns for him. Very steady day. They had 6 different rushes. Got about 150 yards on the ground. They did themselves all right. More complete offensive game on both sides of the ball there. And then, the defense really went to work on this. They sacked Schrager 6 times, including David Bailey, who is the linebacker there for Stanford. He had 3 sacks on the day, as well as a further 6 tackles. They got really aggressive against that Hawaii offensive line, and they knew they were just going to throw it all the time. It gave them opportunities. The Stanford wide receiver, Benjamin Urasek, had 138 yards and a touchdown on 9 receptions. They're making progress, right? This is, they've lost 13 to Stanford. They've had 2 relatively close games against Power 5 teams. The offense is getting there. They need the running game to be better. They need the offensive line to be a little better in pass pro. But this piece has come in, and the defense is doing okay. But I think this has proved they're not there just yet. They're a little bit further behind than maybe they thought they were.
Yeah, their passing offense is carrying them right now. The defense is lagging behind. They will get it together, but it might come too late this season where everything clicks. They're not going to start fast, but no, there's a lot of promise. Like I say, they found their quarterback, and he's everything's humming through him. Yeah, it's just too much too soon right now. I don't know when it's all going to click against a Power 5 team, but at some point this year, it will all click, and they will have a good win. And yeah, Stanford, I'm going to say Benjamin Urasek is 1B tight end next year in the draft with Brock Bowers. He's equally as the best tight end in the nation. He's an absolute star, and he is going to be like a second round draft pick next year. I think he is going to be loaded, and he is really going to be their entire offense this year. Stanford, I see, he's a mismatching chess piece nightmare, and good win for Stanford. Like I say, after such a rotten year last year on and off the field, they avoided upset. So yeah, they'll be happy. Yeah, interesting to see if they can actually do anything in the Pac-12 this year, if they can sort of resurrect something. But yeah, Hawaii closer away than they want to be, but they're getting there. It was 2 hard opening games, to be fair.
Yeah, it was. But they're Power 5 opposition. They're a rebuilding G5 program at the bottom. So I think they've done themselves right. I think the defense is good. It's just on the field too much, and you can't be in that situation. They've just not run the ball the first 2 weeks. And when you're not doing that, you're going to get into shootouts and you're going to lose, which is what they've done. So progress from Hawaii, but not quite there yet. A team that's definitely not there yet, and we were surprised by this because we called what was technically the upset the Battle of the Carolinas. I mean, colour me shocked here. South Carolina had their arse handed to them by Drake May and North Carolina, and not for the reasons you might think. UNC have not been good on defense these past few years. They have struggled, and it has let this team down. Boy, oh boy, I don't think Spencer Rattler will ever get a bigger beating in his life again. Let me just go through this for you. They had
9 times.
Yeah, they had a 24% havoc rate. So 1 in every 4 defensive plays from UNC, they made a significant play in the backfield of South Carolina. That included 17 tackles for loss, 11 against the pass, 6 in the rushing game, 9 sacks on Spencer Rattler. I think he got hit a further 5 times. I mean, Lord, oh Lord, I think this was the heaviest beating a quarterback took this weekend. I don't know how Spencer Rattler got to the end of the game with some of the hits he took. And this was kind of Bryce Young against Tennessee last year when you wondered how he made it to the end. But Spencer never had a chance in this game. And Drake May, by comparison, not a single sack, not a single tackle for loss in the pass game from South Carolina. He threw 2 picks, which were a little concerning, but you know, he just got to put his feet up and smoke a cigar in comparison to Spencer Rattler. I mean, that UNC defense, something's changed. They obliterated a good SEC team from last year.
I was really surprised at this one. This one should have been a lot closer. I feel sorry for Spencer Rattler. It's fair, he didn't turn the ball over despite getting absolutely annihilated. There were no panic throws, interceptions, don't think he fumbled. He just never had a chance today. Like I say, and that offensive line is just like litmus paper in a science lab, just soggy and just useless. And that they've got to fix that quickly. They hand Spencer out like that to dry again a couple of weeks. Like I say, they're going to not win games, and they're going to kill. His draft stock's already on life support. Like I say, and it's like the offensive line's trying to pull the plug out. So, yeah, not a good start. And I like Shane Beamer. Like I said, I like South Carolina. But, yeah, against a rival, pitiful. So, yeah, fix it quickly. And yet, say Drake May wasn't great. But did he need to be? Nah, he kind of just stood there and just picked him off like shooting fish in a barrel. It kind of is for him. He'll get much stiffer tests, and I hope they come quickly because I want to see just how battle ready he is. But, yeah. Perfect cupcake for UNC. But this also proves UNC should never have been ranked to start the season. They should not have been in the top 25, and I still didn't see a top 25 team this week.
No. But, you know, people are going to take notice now. It was... Yeah, I was just shocked by how much pressure they got. And like you said, with Spencer, I was actually very impressed with how he acted under pressure. Like you say, he threw the ball away when he needed to. He got out of harm's way, just didn't make any boneheaded plays. You know, the crazy thing is they lost 31-17. The turnover look, the margin, so not a single turnover from South Carolina, 2 from UNC. So the turnover look margin was actually 8 points in South Carolina's favour. And for a team that usually gets beaten that bad, it's usually the other way round. The turnover margin favours the team that's won. So for them to get half their points, basically, off of UNC turnovers is crazy, and that they didn't make a single one themselves.
I'm not sold on UNC yet. I don't know if that defense will be able to do that against a better team and a better offensive line.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I'm going off South Carolina, who finished last year, who absolutely marmalized some really good teams, and it's like, they absolutely wrecked Tennessee, and it's like, I don't get it. Is it just it's the same old them this year? If they sort of get halfway through the season and get hot, I'm just not going to buy into it this time, because I really thought they were going to start the season better here. Anyhow, let's move on. A few more games to go through. I got this one completely wrong. Ryan got this one completely right. The Tulane Green Wave. I mean, at home against the South Alabama Jaguars, maybe I just gave South Alabama a little bit too much credit. I still think they're going to fight for the Sun Belt title this year. But travelling on the road to the reigning American champions was just way too much for them. They were in it sort of for a little while, but first quarter they gave up 10 points unanswered, and they were just always playing from behind. Tulane win 37-17, and I'm not going to go through everything here, but the story, Ryan, continues to be, and you've hyped him up, highly over these last few weeks. Michael Pratt, the Tulane quarterback, continues to play smart, sensible football and not give the ball over. He was 14 of 15, but he got 294 yards and 4 touchdowns. He's throwing a touchdown less than once every 4 throws. And I mean, 14 completions, 300 yards, crazy, just throwing deep bombs all over the place. Jaquan Jackson had 3 receptions for 106 yards and 2 touchdowns. Lawrence Keyes had 4 receptions for 96 yards and a touchdown. Chris Brazzell had 4 for 53 and a touchdown. And Pratt is, he continues to be overlooked amongst some of the better quarterbacks around. He's bloody good.
I will not be surprised if Michael Pratt is on a 53 next year as a QB2 or QB3. Like I say, he's older, he's experienced, he's super talented. Like I say, he's gone a different journey. He didn't hit the draft or enter really young. Like I say, he's got a lot of experience under his belt. He's one of the more elder statesmen. He's still not 24 or something like that. But yeah, I can see a way into pro football for him. Like I said, he's leading a Tulane team that is just picking off where it left off last year as a team that says we want to make the New Year Six Bowl again. I say that we are the best of the best. There's the Power Five, and then there's us, and they still firmly wear that crown as of right now. So yeah, and like I say, against really good competition, South Alabama played really well. Like I say, it was a really good, fun game to watch, and a huge battle. Like I say, 2 teams that have got aspirations of some silverware this year. But yeah, Tulane come out on top. But yeah, South Alabama, they're still going to be a huge threat this year.
Yeah.
They still dropped a good number of points on them, and they were in that game for the majority of it.
Yeah, I think we just saw a bit of the American establishing the hierarchy around here. They are the better G5 conference than the Sun Belt, possibly, especially when it comes to the top teams. So I'm not too concerned about South Alabama, but I was a little disappointed, but not too. Moving on, a team who I was disappointed by, UTSA, the Roadrunners, had them winning on the road against Houston, but no, not a good day for them. They went down in a very low scoring game, actually, which is not like them. 17 points to 14. It was 10-7 to Houston at halftime. But what really changed this round was the third quarter. Frank Harris, I think he's one of the best quarterbacks in the G5, maybe the best. Uncharacteristic. He doesn't throw turnovers. He threw 3 in 1 quarter, and it just killed any momentum UTSA had at this point. Houston got a touchdown. They were up 17-10. I mean, UTSA did come back. They rallied at the end. They got a touchdown near the end. They were very close to getting a shot at trying to get this. I mean, they were so close to recovering the onside kick to get an opportunity. And then it came to a 4th down stop, which should have been a 4th down stop for me, but it was given to Houston. I disagreed with the spot there. It wouldn't have left them much time, but I thought they turned over on downs right at the end. I'm not going to argue, though. When you turn it over 3 times in 1 quarter, you're having issues there. hangover for the Roadrunners this time, right? They've won 2 in a row in the CUSA, but they didn't look at the best this time, and they brought a lot of that team back, but just didn't quite click for them in week 1.
No, left it too little, too late. Like you say, a sloppy third quarter, very encouraged from Harris. And fair, when I saw what Houston were wearing, those incredible Oilers uniforms, I was like, oh, I knew I picked it up. I like they were not going to lose. But you know, this Cougars team, they're not that good.
No.
That's the annoying thing. They look like a shell of the team that just lost Tank Dell and Clenchu. They're not that good. Big loss, but yeah, they ground it out in the end. Like I say, got a few questionable decisions go their way to see it out at the end. But yeah, UTSA, they'd have wanted that game back. Yeah. 9 times out of 10, they should be winning that game.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, they're just going to have to get this out of the system, chalk it up as a bad week. It's in the non-con, so it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, but they're going to have to get back quickly. One thing I will say, though, about them is Joshua Cephas is a superstar in the making at wide receiver.
I like him.
Yeah, he had 123 yards and a touchdown in this one on just 9 carries. He is an absolute stud, and if Frank Harris rediscovers his best form, he's going to have an absolutely monster year. He'll go well over 1,000 yards, maybe 1.5. So Cephas certainly one to watch out for there. A couple left. Army. Brent, if you're still listening, I'm going to have issues with you. 13-3 up with 5 minutes left in this game. Army. And what do? They give up a 70-yard touchdown on the ground, which is uncharacteristically like them. And then the quarterback decides he's actually going to play as a quarterback and throws 2 successive picks. So he throws one right near their own end zone. They go in for a second touchdown, absolutely turn this game round. And on the game-saving drive, when he eventually gets to it, he throws another pick. I mean, I was fuming at this because I was struggling to get results over this weekend in my pick'em, and I'd not watched this game. I just sort of came up with 5 minutes left. I thought, 13-3. Louisiana Monroe look terrible. I went back and watched this one. Gia Wright, the quarterback, 10 of 21, 70 yards, 2 interceptions. That was his day. They do their work on the ground, the Warhawks do. Hunter Smith had 103 yards on 7 carries and a touchdown at 15 yards per carry. He had that big 70-yard one at the end, so his stats are padded a bit, but they were running about 5 yards per carry, which is still really healthy. But Army, Bryson Daly, screw you, because I was going to win this one. Army should have won this, and they let it go. This is not a good result for them, right? Because ULM are one of the worst teams on their schedule, and they've thrown away a very comfy lead. ULM had 3 points in that entire game until the last 5 minutes. That's how bad they were.
A proper smash and grab, like you say. The decision to, like you say, suddenly go away from what was working, start throwing the ball, well, it hurt them dearly, didn't it? Like you say, ULM corners just licking their lips, pounced, and they changed the game then. And they'll probably they can't believe their eyes that they won that game. No. Played so poorly for 93% of it. And like I said, we dodged a bullet, we've got to get better. Army. Yep, explosive plays, like I say, especially a run through, like I said, run through about 70 yards, very uncharacteristic. And we've learned that they're still not built to throw the ball. Like I said, or at least throwing it at the wrong times when they're trying to force throws or force plays to happen. So they got this one totally wrong. And game management and the situational football was terrible.
Yeah, it was atrocious. And Brent goes, so much for the new air raid offense for Army. Yes, Bryson Daly's going to need to learn how to throw the ball. So, issues there. Right, let's move on. We've been going a while. There have been a lot of good games to talk about this week. 2 games left on the pick watch, then we'll quickly go through the near upsets. Very quickly, Oregon State Beavers beat the San Jose Spartans 42-17. I sort of ummed and ahed on this, but I'm going to say, do Oregon State not look so impressive this year? That offensive line, and this is against the San Jose State team who field good defenses, good defensive line, a lot of good players on there. They look so dominant. DJ could have sat down in a chair, read a book, and then threw a pass on pretty much every play. I was so impressed by them and how they looked. They big dark horses for the Pac-12 this year if they carry on playing like that.
Oh yeah, they were cooking. He was throwing darts. those receivers were just wide open. Like I say, and San Jose sat like two deep safeties for a lot of that second half, and they were still getting passed on. They were getting passed through. They were getting passed over. Like they sold out to stop the pass, and they didn't. DJ cooked, like I say, 5 touchdowns, and then the other side of the ball. Is it Surveyor, the quarterback? Yeah.
Oh, Shedeur. Oh, Cordero.
Yeah.
Sorry, Chevin Cordero.
Yeah. He got mullered. He was constantly just getting battered behind the offensive line, or he was just getting stuffed. Like blockers were not blocking for him. He had no outlets, no escapes. Like the offensive line was just not able to hold all. And penalties. Oh God, San Jose State. The penalties crucified them constantly. They kept shooting themselves in the foot. Really frustrating game to watch. But yeah, the Beavs, hot, sticky road game. They cooked. And like I say, they comfortably won that. And like I say, after such a good year last year, they could follow it up with another good year.
Yeah, honestly, they could. I think they look so impressive, and it was just because the offense was just so balanced. I mean, DJ, 239 yards and 3 touchdowns. He had 2 rushing, but Damian Martinez, the lead running back, 18 carries, 145 yards. You're running at 8 yards per click. You're just opening the playbook up for DJ to cook. But I guess it opens up the question: was he not as bad as we thought he was at Clemson? Was it just a case of they didn't give him the weapons to work with? Because Oregon State, I mean, he threw the ball around 8 different guys. You know, lots of targets, spread the ball out, looked comfy. Were we just maybe fooled into thinking he didn't look that good? Because the team, as we've seen with Klubnik there now, he's not doing no better. And we know he's a good quarterback, but he looked average. Are we seeing Clemson getting maybe shown to be behind his bad form now?
It definitely does raise the question. Like, say, who was at fault for his time there? Was it play calling, quarterback, the team? Because, like I say, in his debut, looked great. I need to see a bigger sample size first before I say he's better off without Clemson, and they wish they had him back. But yeah, on first viewing, certainly no hangover, and he does not miss the Tigers one bit. And they look like, well, they definitely weren't better off without him this week.
No, they look like they could have done with him. In fairness, it was shocking. So, yeah, well done, Oregon State. Really going to this Pac-12 just looks crazy this year. I think there were just Pac-12 teams who really stood out this week in the midsection. I mean, even Cal put up 60 this week. I know they're not good, but you know, Oregon State guys like that really put themselves in the frame now. And finishing off the pick watch, I saved this till last. Save the biggest humiliation till the end. But Rye, if I was to ask you who was the most humiliated coach in college football this week, who would your answer be? They played one of the last games of the week. Ash's favourite team.
Oh, Brian Kelly.
Brian Kelly.
That was a thumping.
Yeah, the LSU Tigers, they just, in his own words, they are not the team that I thought they were. Who says that about their own side? Who chucks them under the bus like that? But that is what happened. We thought LSU and Florida State was going to be a close game. It looked like it would be at first. LSU were up at the half, 17-14. But whatever Florida State did at the break, whatever inspiration they used, whatever they told them, they came out and they dominated from snap one in the second half. And they absolutely... I watched the whole thing up until about 4:30 in the morning. Jordan Travis, great again, 342 yards, 4 touchdowns and an interception. Just one pick thrown, was a bit of a boneheaded one. He got a rushing touchdown as well. The rushing game was fine. Not like we used to see him with them, but they just picked on the LSU secondary in this, and no one introduced themselves more in this game, rather than former Michigan State Spartan, Keon Coleman. 3 touchdowns on the day, 122 yards, 9 receptions. Him and Johnny Wilson becoming one of the elite pairings at wide receiver in the entirety of college football. They cooked. This was well done steak territory is what the LSU defense were at the end of this.
This is why I picked Florida State to make the playoffs. This is why I think Jordan Travis can win the Doak Walker. He's, like I say, and he's not just got one outlet. Now he's got multiple outlets emerged from that offense. They are going to be a proper force to reckon with. And Jared Verse, oof, like I say, he's probably going to be
top 5 pick,
top 5 draft pick next year.
Yeah,
he's probably going to be the first edge rush off the board. Like you say, he's fantastic in run support. He's a menace getting to the walkback. He's a finisher. He's got that build you die for. Yeah, he looks like he's going to be easily, potentially, like you say, in the best defensive player of the award base. And yeah, the Seminoles look legit. And LSU, well, I don't know, their playoff hopes, huge dent now in their playoff aspirations for this year. My already dislike of Brian Kelly grows further. He won't be around in it. He won't be here too long in Louisiana because he's so dislikable.
And, we talk about Jared Verse being a top 5 pick in an NFL draft. There was another player in this game who should be a top 5 pick in a draft from maybe a bit more of an outside linebacker position for LSU, Harold Perkins. And
I love him.
What did they do with him? He played 35 snaps against Florida State. 28 of them he played in coverage. They rushed the passer 7 times, 1 in every 4 with him. And this is my worry with James Houston with the Detroit Lions. Yes, he has to be a versatile player at the next level and do more than pass rush, but he's elite at something. In a massive game like that, send him after Travis. Travis had so much time and was escaping the pocket so much in this game, and you've got your elite guy. Bear in mind you're missing your elite DT in the middle. Your elite guy on the edge. You've got him sat in coverage. How boneheaded a decision is that by Brian Kelly? That should get you fired. Decisions like that.
Yeah, Houston totally wrong. Harold Perkins is a pursuit linebacker. Side to side, rushes the passer. Like, in coverage, why? Let's say Ken Coleman's fast, let's say Johnny Wilson's 6'7". What, is he going to pick someone up out of the flat? Is he going to go, take a wheel route? No, he's not. He's not an elite receiving linebacker or coverage linebacker. I say he's a do-it-all, thumper in the box, pass rusher, tackle for lost monster, and utilised completely wrong. And not even on the field for majority of the game. Who knows why? Like I say, and I think Perkins will lose patience with this very quickly. If this is how they plan to use him, he will not be happy this year. If they hurt his draft stock, he'll kick off. The LSU dressing room, like I say, if things go bad quickly in the first 3 or 4 weeks, I expect it to blow up.
Yeah. If he did that for one more game, I would just enter the portal then. I'm not doing that to my draft pick. That's stupid. I was there where the hell is he? Why is he not getting any pressures? I'm not hearing his name. There's a reason why he sat there doing nothing. It's I don't want the same to happen to Houston with the Lions. I want us to deploy him as an edge rusher. Yes, he has to do his coverage stuff and his run defense stuff. Fine, get that. But in high leverage situations, I want him after the quarterback. In high pressure games, I want him after the quarterback. He's there. Use him. Brian Kelly is boneheaded, and that will get him fired if he carries on that way. But well done, Florida State. I ain't going to crown him yet because I don't think LSU are that good. I think I'm going to wait until they come up against someone better. I mean, I don't know who's better on this schedule. Clemson, they've got to go to Clemson, but I think they're going to go and kill them. They're going to absolutely wipe Clemson on their home ground. They're probably not going to face reasonable competition till the playoffs.
No.
I mean,
like I said, they've 12-0. They've got to be looking at 12-0.
See, my new sicko's vision for the future, I want Florida State to get Michigan in the playoffs. 2 versus 3 rank. Because then either I get to watch all the Michigan fans cry when they're exposed again, or Ash gets to cry. I win either way. I feed off the pain of either side. So I'm rooting for both of those teams right now. Meet each other in the semi-finals of the playoffs and make me happy. Obviously, one of them will get through, but they can lose to Georgia in the final. Right, that is the pick watch stuff. Right, oh, good lord, we've been going some time on these. This has been such a fun week. I just love talking college football again now that it's back. Right, we've done the pick watch stuff. Finally, we're going to end up in the survivor corner, what I call it. Teams who nearly got upset. And there are a few in this I wasn't expecting this week, but go through them very quickly, right? Georgia State, 42-35 winners over Rhode Island. Rhode Island so nearly upset them on this. They put 520 yards of offense down on them, the FCS side did, including 410 in the air, going at 7 yards per play. And it was only because of a really good first quarter from Georgia. They were just able to keep them at arm's length enough. But Rhode Island are not known for their FBS upsets in recent years. And, you know, we knew the Georgia State secondary was bad, but 520 yards against Rhode Island, that was... They were very lucky in this game.
I expect Rhode Island to be a competitor in the FCS this year. They made strides last year. Like I say, playoffs, like I say, looked good, high-powered offense, and for them, I'd say that's a win. It's not a game they expected to win, and their offense went out there and it put a shellacking. Like I say, fell short, but opened a can of whoop-ass, and they will now think that we can be the William and Mary of this year. They were averaging like 500 yards of an offense last year in FCS. They'll be like, Rhode Island, well, do you know what we've done to FBS side? We can do it to everyone in the FCS too. So I'm going to watch Rhode Island now. Like I say, I expect them to replicate that now against lesser sides. But yeah, Georgia State, can't be happy with that.
No.
Survived by skinnier teeth.
No, and they're in the pick watch for this week coming up, and let's just say the people are not picking them at this moment in time, and I've got to think about whether I will or not. Next up, I'm sorry, I've got to put this in, but in what was the funnest game of the week, because you actually got to wake up in the morning and watch the Arizona State Sun Devils play, because a giant-ass sandstorm interrupted this one. I think it finished at 1 in the morning. There, you got to finish watching the end of this, but Arizona State at home just sneaking by Southern Utah, another FCS team, 24-21. I mean, there's extenuating circumstances here, but that's got to be kind of a concern for you for this year.
It was weird because I think it was like the third quarter, they were leading like 21-3. And Jaden Rashada, everyone was saying for his debut, he looked really good. The defense, though, like you say, the delay as well, I think it really unsettled them. I think it really did. I think in the end they were just glad to get off the field. Kenny Dillingham won't have taken anything from that game. Won't have been happy, but he's freshman, stout quarterback, got the job done. But yeah, in the end it was ugly, and Southern Utah, super plucky. Not easy conditions to play in at all with such a long delay. They can take a lot of credit from that, but yeah, they dodged the bullet. That's all I'll say. It's a game that you win, you forget, and you move on. But yeah, I'd like to think that they play better in future weeks. If they don't, we're in for a world of trouble this year. If offense can do fine, but if the defense cannot muster anything better than that, they're in trouble. Cam Scatibo, like I say, he was the star of the show. Their FCS transfer running back. He came up clutch with some huge, third and fourth down rushes late in the fourth quarter to see that game away. But yeah, like I say, another good pickup for them. Like I say, we'll see if they can actually improve it. It was a wake up call.
Yeah, they get a bit of. I'm going to give them the biggest pass out of all these teams who were nearly upset, because I say the extenuating weather does not help. They only scored 3 points after the half, which is why they're getting in a bit of bother there. So yeah, they get a pass. A team who don't get a pass, however, and they nearly shocked me because I have predicted them to be in the Sun Belt title discussion this year, and I have put out a lot of checks regarding this team. Marshall sneaked by the hairs of their chinny chin against Albany. Now, we know Albany are good, Jared Verse comes from Albany. They've sent a lot of good players into the FBS. It's a good program, but Marshall, until the last quarter of this game, were losing, and it was a touchdown in the fourth that won it for them. I mean, it was this again sort of story of turnovers. Rasheen Ali's back. That's great. You know, we missed all of last year. 18 carries, 137 yards, 2 touchdowns, 8 yards per carry. They got the run game in there. Cam Fancher was okay, 268 yards, a touchdown and an interception at quarterback. Kind of don't want that in there. I mean, the defense, I think they had like 6 or 7 sacks in this game as well. So you're thinking, how are Albany staying into this? But they hung in there. Like your adage of a barnacle on the bottom of a boat or something like that. They kept getting hit, they kept getting punched, and they would not go away. And, you know, for Marshall, they'll be glad they got out of this. I'm guessing for them it's kind of like we've shook the rust off a little bit, nearly upset, but we look good. We've just got to be a lot better going forward, but just enough to shake off the FCS upstarts.
Yeah, I think this is one of those like where, well, we've got through the bad, like I say, we've seen the ugly. Like, it's not bad to have a blip right at the start of the season, but yeah, Albany, super plucky. They just would not go away. They hung in there to the very end, and yes, it was a Rasheen Ali, basically a masterclass that got them over the line. Like I say, clock management in the end, they were just too much and overpowered them. But yeah, Albany, good FCS side. I've got a lot of love for them. Like I said, any team called the Great Danes, what an original name that is in a logo. Like, honestly, it's so refreshing to see someone with like an actual identity. I love that. But yeah, Marshall, super lucky. And for a team, like I said, is expected to be a serious G5 contender, I did not expect them to be in that position. The other teams we've spoken about, like, I wasn't overly surprised they struggled. But Marshall, I did not see that, knowing that Ali was back.
No, it was... You thought they'd just run the clock down. And they said the offense, there's no wrong with the stats they put. That beat a lot of G5 teams, but Albany just played really well, so fair plays to them. There's 2 more. I mean, God, some were close. We talk about the top of the G5. Now we're in the basement. Florida International, 14-12 winners against Maine. Oh, Jesus Christ, they're such an awful team at the moment. I think he's done there this year if they don't do any better than this. But Maine outdid them in yards, 378-305. More passing yards. Florida International had 13 rushing yards in this game. How can you only rush for 13 yards against an FCS outfit and classify yourself as serious? They were beaten and battered at the line of scrimmage. It was more Maine's inability to score points with all the possession they had, but they're an FCS team. You can kind of forgive them for that. It happens. That's why they're down there. But good God, are they going to get their asses handed to them this year if they carry on playing like that?
Yeah, this is the first team where it's a really worrying side. Couldn't muster any offense. Their defense only saw through because they were playing an offense with, which, no disrespect, was pretty inept. Maine should have won this game. They'll be looking at this thinking, how did we not beat such a bad FBS team? They really let that game slip there. It was like 2 clowns fighting. Like, it was bad. Like I say, in the end, no one really won. We knew what FIU were bad, and they proved it. And I'd like to have thought better than Maine, but they let a huge opportunity slip by that only comes around every blue moon to beat an FBS side. And yeah, they couldn't muster any reasonable offense to put away a terrible side. So yeah, they're both in the bad books this week.
Yeah, absolutely. Lisa says it best about Marshall. They don't have Stephen Gilmore anymore, the Lions do. Absolutely. With him in there, he'd have got the turnovers they required. And the very last one, before we talk about next week, this was actually nearly a big upset between MAC and Big Ten. Toledo, 2 points shy of beating Illinois. Illinois at home scraped through this 30-28 winners. You could tell just how much talent Illinois lost last year because they were disjointed. They did not look good. I watched a big part of this, and I was watching Hustle Belt's coverage of it as well that they were doing, and it was just... This was another boneheaded mistakes from Toledo. They gave through an inopportune pick Daquan Finn did, couple of turnovers on there which, you know, they shouldn't have, and it was just like, this was close. It shouldn't be this close. They should be, you know, with the amount of talent they've had, they should be looking at the upper echelons of the Big Ten. Toledo nearly did them on their home ground.
Oh yeah, Illinois are by no means a mainstay or a team that is dispatching sides left, right, and centre, but they're still a 6, 7, 8 win team most years, like I say, and they're still a comfortable Big Ten side. So to struggle against Toledo, to ship 28 points, like I say, to almost throw it away, it's bad looking all around. Like I say, they survived by the skin of their teeth, but I can't imagine that anyone was happy at full time. You breathe your big sigh of relief, then when you get in the locker room, they must have been chewed out. Like I say, Toledo, I like the Quanfin, good quarterback. Like you say, it was there, it was in their sights, a chance to cause like one of the biggest upsets of the weekend, and they let it slip. And that will probably really frustrate them. It'd have frustrated me if I'm a Toledo fan, because that would have been a huge scalp. But yeah, they'll look at the mistakes they made and they'll come back. But yeah, not a great start to the season for the Fighting Illini.
No, it was tough for them, and again another near upset. That's all the games we're going to do, because we've been going for some time on these, but there was a lot in there. In terms of matched rank ups versus the weaker ones, Michigan, Ohio State, there were no near upsets at all. Alabama, Tennessee, Penn State. I think out of all of them, Ohio State looked the worst, didn't they? Right? I'm not buying that team this year. I said that Penn State will lose when they go to the shoe, or whatever they call it down there at OSU, but I think they could win. That offense does not look good for Ohio State this year. That scoreline is flattering to them. If they come up against a half decent Big Ten team this week, they'd have lost. But in the end, it looked comfy.
Yeah, Marvin Harrison Jr., like I say, he's a star. Got a Booker. Like I say, they'll carry someone. But Kyle McCord, he does not fill me with any confidence whatsoever. And if they go over back up in a few weeks, which does not surprise me, I fully expect them to play at least one quarterback this season. We might even see all the quarterbacks play this season, even if they're winning games. We will see them all, because Kyle did not fill me with confidence. They're going to have to rely on their star receivers, and Trayvon Henderson is going to have to make himself the biggest factor in this offense too. Yeah, like I say, win comfortably. Like I say, looked fine, did their job and everything, but long term against the big boys, no, I don't like their chances. As soon as they come up against a stellar defense, I reckon the QB will be like a rabbit in headlights.
Yeah. I think they're going to struggle. I feel quite comfortable in saying Penn State are a better team than Ohio State this year. I think I'm quite comfortable. I mean, yeah, I know we've been talking for ages, but very quickly, Drew Aller looked good. I mean, very encouraging signs for them at Penn State. He's the one you wondered about. The running back room, 1-2 punch amazing, defense really good. He looked very composed and made some really good passes.
Yeah, a very polished performance from like a very young man. Like I say, making a big start, a lot of pressure on him. Everyone is talking about Drew Aller and Penn State. He has got an immense amount of pressure on his shoulders that Sean Clifford very rarely ever had. So yeah, everyone is talking about their chance now. They've got to try and win the Big Ten, and this is a huge chance for them. And yep, it didn't bother him. He didn't look like he was playing with any pressure. Composed, made no mistakes, and just executed. Like I say, it looks like a really independent, strong young man. So I'm hoping that this is the future. They might have found their future on the ground and through the air. And if they do and it all clicks, the Nittany Lions are going to be super dangerous in the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I say, I think the Nittany Lions can beat Ohio State now. Obviously, we'll see until that game happens, but as of first week, I think they look so impressive. Right, that's everything for the games this week. We've talked for quite a while. The rankings are out, the AP ones. I mean, we could kind of go down to the bottom of these, but Georgia number 1, Michigan 2, Alabama 3, Florida State 4, Ohio State 5, USC 6, Penn State 7, Washington, Tennessee, Notre Dame fill out the top 10. Then you get some of the more interesting ones. You've got Texas, Utah, Oregon, LSU, Kansas State, Oregon State, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Wisconsin and Ole Miss rounded out the top 20. It's 20 to 25. They're where the new teams start to sneak in. So Duke are ranked 21, Colorado at 22, Texas A&M at 23, Tulane at 24, and Clemson are ranked 25. I'm sorry, but Get the hell out. You get beaten by Duke to the point where they had to make a mistake for you to get one score in the entire game. Get out of there. But Duke, Colorado, rightfully in there, and they're probably going to get higher as the season goes on.
I'm surprised they're not a little bit higher. Like, I know Wisconsin, their ground game, they're running back by like 300 yards. Tanner Mordecai,
bad.
He didn't exactly do himself any favours, did he, this week?
No.
He did not look good. And I do worry. He was leaving such a comfortable air raid system with good receivers. That's not the Wisconsin style of football. They were struggling late on. Like I say, their star backs were absolutely killing it. And they're I don't know, Wisconsin could struggle this year. If anyone ever stops their run game, they're screwed. They're too high. I'm surprised Colorado aren't higher. Like,
it's a big win.
Notre Dame looked good, but then I also look at so far, with no respect, who they've played.
Yeah.
It's been really easy. So top 10, obviously I get that they're now, but they'll have bigger tests to come.
Yeah.
So yeah. LSU, a bit high.
Yeah.
There's a few, like I say, a bit iffy in there.
Yeah, I mean, Alabama are frauds at 3. There's so many better teams than them this year, but yeah, that is where we're at. Mike Laundrie just made me laugh a minute ago. He just went, Clemson should be banished. I'm just imagining me going, be gone, Satan! It's just that out of the top 25. You're not coming back in. Unless you beat Florida State at home, you ain't coming back in the top 25. You're done. And he goes relegated to Division 2. Lisa goes, Penn State and Drew Aller did look good. Yeah, they did. I'm glad because I've really backed them this year and I need them. I need them to beat Michigan or Ohio State to at least make me seem at least partly competent. So please Penn State, carry on. Right, we've talked enough about week 1 there. We're going to look ahead to week 2 now to close out the show. Of course, we're going to talk about the 10 pick watch fixtures first because we need to explain it and do bits for our group who are making decisions on this, and then we'll talk about any other fixtures you want us to talk about. So we're starting off the card here, and I've put some teasers in this week. I'm really going to try and tease you into making some upset ones this week, right? So let's see. But the first, the Ole Miss Rebels at Tulane. Intriguing matchup here. The current American champions who've just banished South Alabama at home. Now, yes, there's big difference between South Alabama and Ole Miss, but we're going to go through it now. Some of these teams we've not talked about in the preseason, so I'll go over them briefly. So coming into this, Ole Miss are coming off a 73-7 tanking of Mercer. That was the FCS game. Tulane coming off that 37-17 win against South Alabama. Ole Miss, coached by Lane Kiffin, 4th season. He's 24-13, and since the start of his leadership at Ole Miss, they are actually the 3rd winningest program in the SEC after Georgia and Alabama, and it's all fueled by their potent offense that averaged over 500 yards a game last season. Jackson Dart is the current incumbent at quarterback, but Spencer Sanders, the former OSU Oklahoma State quarterback who's got over 10,000 yards in college football, is there, and Walker Howard, the transfer from LSU, is there. All 3 of them saw the field in week 1 in that big win there. Quinshon Judkins, one of the best running backs in college football. He's got Heisman potential. He had 1,500 yards last season, and he's backed up by Ulysses Bentley. He's the star running back, I think, who came in from SMU. So big 1-2 punch there. They got a couple of star wide receivers in. Trey Harris from Louisiana Tech had 4 touchdowns on his debut. Jordan Watkins, who was already there, had a 100-plus yard day. They didn't even have Zachary Franklin on the field, the star wide receiver transfer from UTSA. He's been dealing with a knee injury, but he's believed to be back this weekend. And then they've got Michael Trigg and Caden Priestcorn at tight end. In other words, they are absolutely loaded on offense. The defense is the Achilles heel for them, stops them really breaking into the top ranks of the SEC. The secondary only had 8 picks last year. It is full of new transfers, and so is the defense in general. A lot of turnover there, and Mercer are no indication of just how good the new guys are faring. The key to beating Ole Miss, stop the run. They were 8-1 last year when rushing over 4.6 yards per carry. The exception been against Arkansas when we whipped their ass. They were 0-4 when they rushed under that. Quinshon Judkins is this offense. He moves the chains. He makes it happen. He puts the QBs in favourable situations to use their vast swathe of targets there. You look on the other side, Tulane. In 2022, they only averaged 3.9 yards per carry given up against the run, so they're good. And they held South Alabama to 86 yards on 23 carries in week 1. And South Alabama have got LaDamian Webb. He was well over 1,000 yards last year. Terrific running back. They shut him down. Michael Pratt, we've talked about, one of the most underappreciated quarterbacks in college football. Doesn't turn the ball over. Really good. Tulane's problem on defense last year, getting to the quarterback. But they had 5 sacks in the first week of this year. So it is changing around there. Rye, you watch Ole Miss a lot more than I do. You know this team well. This is a tough one for them. This is a banana skin against this Tulane side who we've seen are not missing the guys they've left. What are your thoughts on this game and who's going to win it?
I think Tulane will score a lot of points. I don't trust the Ole Miss defense as far as I can throw it. I think Ole Miss will score a lot of points. I think Ole Miss will score just enough in a high-powered shootout. I think the Rebels will just survive, but I'll probably have more questions and answers after this weekend. But I think Ole Miss will just take a high-powered shootout. Won't be surprised if these two both sink 35, 40 points on each other easy.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's so emotional. Me would get on the bandwagon and go for Tulane this week, but I'm going to bet against them again. I think Ole Miss just have a little too much in the tank for them. Quinshon Judkins is just he's a star. I mean, like, he's going to be the top running back in the draft one day. I think they've just got a little too much for him. So I'm going to go with, I'm going to go with Ole Miss as well. So that is an Ole Miss sweep. Next up, Ryan, Texas A&M at Miami, Florida. The Hurricanes. A&M coming off a 52-10 win against New Mexico. The Hurricanes coming off a 38-3 win against Miami of Ohio. Not really serious competition for either of these, and this is the battle of bad teams who've fallen on hard times. Texas A&M led by Jimbo Fisher. It's his 6th year, sporting a 39-21 record. They're one of the biggest disappointments in college football, full stop. They constantly have high-rated recruiting classes, constantly talk about the potential of this team. Texas teams who are constantly overhyped. I wonder. But in reality, this is a team who have not had a double-digit win season since 2011, and they've actually had just one player drafted in the top 3 rounds of a draft since 2019, which is insane for the amount of high 5-star guys they get. Connor Wegman is the quarterback, emerging talent, went 8 touchdowns, no interceptions last year, started this year 5-0 in that category, but still largely untested against top-tier opposition. The running back room is relying on the new superstar recruit Ruben Owens to come straight in and make some noise for them, so they're relying on new guys, really. They've got 2 future NFL guys on the offensive line, Bryce Foster, the center, Ruben Fothery, the right tackle. They are both immense, but outside of that, still issues. Defense was the problem. They gave up over 2,500 rushing yards last season. Only 8 teams in the entire FBS did that. If you all remember, App State did a number on them at home last year. They had the ball for 40 minutes because all they did was run the ball on them. New Mexico were running over 4 yards per carry this week. They are one of the worst teams in the FBS, and they were still going at over 4 yards a carry against all those 5-stars on the D-line. So that is not fixed. The pass defense stats are not indicative of their skills. I think they were like 5th or 6th against the pass in the country because teams did not throw at them. Those stats are skew with. So there's big issues with that team still. On the other side, Mario Cristobal and the Hurricanes. He's the former Oregon Ducks head coach. He's a former offensive lineman for the Hurricanes. He's in his 2nd season. The first year was bad. They went 5-7, but they are a rebuilding program. The offense beaten, battered, bruised last year. Just one time they put up more than 24 points against Power 5 opposition, and that was Georgia Tech with their aforementioned quarterback, who was no good. Shannon Dawson is the new offensive coordinator. He comes from Houston, so he implemented that devastating pass-based offense that got Clayton Tune a shot in the NFL. And they've got Tyler Van Dyke at quarterback. No matter what you say about him, how bad he's been, he's got NFL upside, but he got 0 protection last year. It got so bad he got hurt and he missed the end of the season. He missed the last slate of games. because of how hurt they were. Now, Cristobal, he's an offensive line guy. He's gone all out to fix it there. So they've got their 5-star tackle, Zion Nelson, back. He missed all last year due to injury. They've got 2 new 5-star tackles arriving, Francis Maui-Goa and Samson Okunlola. They bought in 3-year starting UCF centre Matt Lee. He's given up just 1 sack in the last 2 years as a centre for UCF. They've had a good offensive line. He registered an 83 pass block grade in their opening game. And they've also bought in Javian Cohen. He's had 1,500 snaps at guard for Alabama in the last 2 years. So that line is slated to be a lot better this year. They didn't give up any sacks or quarterback hits week 1. Yes, it is Miami of Ohio, but it's a start. They've got a good running back room. You've got Henry Parrish Jr. coming back. You've got another superstar recruit, Mark Fletcher, in the running back room. They combined for 166 yards and 2 touchdowns at over 9 yards per carry in week 1. The receivers, no flashy names, fine for what they need. They need to cut down turnovers. They were one of the worst teams in the country for turnovers last year. And then on defense, they've brought in Marshall defensive coordinator Lance Guidry. The Thundering Herd defense last year, they led the FBS in third down stops. They were the nation's 4th best run defense, and they were 5th in takeaways. Now, these are all areas that Miami have struggled in recent years. They get lots of sacks, they get lots of takeaways, but all round they need to be better at the nitty-gritty stuff, the third down blocks. The D-line's absolutely loaded. They've added to that. They've brought in Branson Dean from Purdue to bolster that group even further, and they've maybe got the best pair of safeties in college football. Cameron Kinchins, he's safety 1 in whichever draft he wants to go in. James Williams is not far behind. They've got a lot of talent, Ryan, on this team, and he's made, I know it's Cristobal's 2nd year and he's replaced the coordinators, but sometimes if it's broken, fix it. He's brought in 2 very successful coordinators who have implemented very successful systems at their teams. This maybe we might see them start to turn the road this year. They won't win the Atlantic, but we might see them do better. They're up against Texas A&M, who are constantly letting people down. Who wins? And what do you think of the game?
2 teams I absolutely hate that play god-awful football. This is a nightmare to pick because it's like picking between, I don't know,
clap and gonorrhea is what I always say.
The off cheese at the back of the fridge, or like lumpy milk that's a couple of days out of date. Like, pick either one of them, I'm probably going to get burned. I've called on Tyler Van Dyke completely, absolutely. Now, I don't think he's currently right now. I don't think he's even draftable. I think he's properly fallen off the radar. But I think their defense can trouble Connor Wiegman, who's had it way too easy up until now. And I do not trust A&M whatsoever. I'm going to take the Canes, and I expect to totally regret this, but I think that defense can win the game for him, even if Van Dyke can't do it himself. I reckon they can force Connor into turnovers and get the ball back. This will be ugly.
Yeah.
Probably even be a low scorer, but yeah, I'll take Miami begrudgingly.
See, I think Jimbo's shown that he's a fraud. Cristobal's had 1 year. I think if any of them are going to build a successful program, Cristobal's going to do it. And I like the hires he's made. So I'm going to go Miami, the Hurricanes as well. So that's a Miami sweep. We agree on the first 2. Let's move it on. Next up, I feel like we're going to diverge on this. Wisconsin at Washington State. Wisconsin, coming off the back of a 38-17 win over Buffalo, did not look impressive in the slightest. Not until, and I've got his name down here somewhere, that running back tailed off a 70-yard odd run and got a touchdown. They started pulling away. They struggled big time with them. Washington State, they're coming in off the back of a road win at Colorado State, 50-24. Now, we've not talked about either of these teams at the start either. So Wisconsin, an anomaly of a team. So they're on a 21-season stretch of winning records. They've won 8 bowl games in their last 9 years, and they're the winningest program in the playoff era who have never made it to the playoffs. So no team has won more games than them and not made it to the playoffs. Yet they don't have a Big Ten championship in 11 years, and they've not even been able to win their division in recent years, while Northwestern, Iowa, Purdue have. Luke Fickell, the former Cincy head coach, is back there. He turned Cincinnati into the Group of Five's premier team. They're hoping for things here. The 113th ranked pass offense was holding them back last year. We know the running game is good. They've gone to great pains to fix it. The new offensive coordinator is Phil Longo. He comes in from UNC. We've seen what his passing offenses have done for Sam Howell and Drake May. The dead weight at quarterback is gone. Mertz is gone. They've brought in Tanner Mordecai, who again comes from a pass-happy ops system, one of the most dangerous passing offenses in the country. And he's going to complement the best pair of running backs maybe out of them all. Braylon Allen, Ryan loves him, favourite player there. And Ches Malusi, that's the one. They had 300 yards and 4 touchdowns on just 30 carries against Buffalo and basically won them the game. Fickle's brought in 3 Power 5 transfer receivers to go with all Mertz's top targets from last year, so the wide receiver room's deep. All depends on the O-line. They used to run blocking more than pass blocking. They need to keep Mordecai upright. And Mordecai himself needs to do well because he threw 2 picks in his first week. Defense has always been good, so it gave up more than 24 points just 3 times last year. Very good defense. They just need to replace Keanu Benton and Nick Herbig, both who are with the Steelers in the NFL now. They are loaded at linebacker. You've got Jordan Turner, CJ Gertz, Maima Njong Meta. Those are the guys to look for there. Washington State, led by Jake Dickert. He's entering year 3. He's 10-9. He inherited that disaster reign that you'll remember, right, from Nick Rolovich. Ugh, he absolutely ruined that team. It's been up and down, but they might surprise people. They've got a new offensive coordinator. He is 27 years old. He is 6 years younger than me. Ben Arbuckle. Precisely 1 season of coaching experience. That was as co-OC at Western Kentucky, the nation's most potent passing offense last year by far. He's got a lot of talent here. Cameron Ward, the IUW transfer, 2nd year. He had 3,200 yards, 23 touchdowns last year. Just needs to cut out the picks. There were 9 of them. They've brought in Kyle Williams from UNLV, Josh Kelly from Fresno State at receiver. Both highly productive. The latter had 100 yards in week 1. They're 3 deep at running back, headlined by Nakia Watson. They didn't need to run much week 1. Colorado State's secondary is awful. They just threw the ball all over them. And then they've got Jeff Schmedding in at defensive coordinator. He was Auburn's DC last year, which is maybe not much of a commendation. Defense gave up over 400 yards per game, but in fairness, most teams in the Pac-12 did. Given you think of the teams in that conference, they all sort of beat up on one another. They've got 2 really good defensive ends, Brennan Jackson and Ron Stone. Plenty of success against the quarterback. They just need to strengthen up the interior. But one of Schmedding's few successes at Auburn was with the DTs and the linebackers. Secondary is solid enough. What do you think, Ryan? Wisconsin, Washington State. Wisconsin are just an anomaly. They win loads, but they don't actually win anything. Washington State are a rebuilding program, but they've got a really good offense. You know what those Pac-12 offenses are like. Washington State are at home. Who have you got, and what do you think of the game?
Well, it's going to be a total different clash of styles. Wisconsin do one thing well. Just keep the ball out of Tanner Mordecai's hands. Honestly, I don't want him throwing the ball. Just give it to Malossi and Braylon Allen, and then just let the offensive line go to work. I am going to take Wisconsin because of their ground game, and I think it can help them. They control the clock really well. They're not flashy, they're ugly, but honestly, I think they've got the joint best running back pair in the Big Ten and one of the best running back pairs in the nation, possibly. And behind that, Luke Fickell understands that. So don't take any risks. I feel like they'll eke out a game, but I reckon the defense will get torched by Cam Ward. I think this is going to be a game of attrition. It's going to be tight.
Yeah, I've always been a big believer in Cam, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, they beat Wisconsin last year at Wisconsin's ground. I mean, at home. So he got his big win there. I think they can two-peat it. I'm going to diverge from you. I'm going to go with Washington State. I just love Cam Ward that much. I think he can. I think this will be his big game where he really breaks out for Washington State. So Ryan is with Wisconsin. I'm with Washington State. Next up, we've got one of the state rivalries early, and it's not a very pretty one. Iowa at Iowa State. Iowa, they won 24-14 against Utah State last week. Not particularly impressive. Iowa State won 30-19 over Northern Iowa. I think, Ryan, Iowa and 26th year head coach Kirk Ferentz are about the easiest team to describe in college football. On offense, they are downright offensive. On defense, they are about the hardest, ass-kickingest, ball-taking-awayest team in the country that is one of the NFL's biggest producers of talent. They allowed 13 points or less in 10 of 13 games last year, which is just, that shouldn't happen in today's offensively minded games. It was incredible. Offense, on the other hand, 129th in total yards per game, 122nd in scoring, 128th in third down conversions, and dead last in rushing in the Big Ten. Cade McNamara, the new quarterback there, had a decent first week, threw for a couple of touchdowns. He brings his best buddy Eric All with him, the tight end. And Iowa does one thing well, they develop tight ends, and with Eric All and Luke Lackey, who had 4 of the team's 7 touchdown passes last year, they got a good tight end room. But they've no Tyler Goodson this year at running back, and he was basically the big reason why their offense was relevant last year. And of course, no Sam Laporta, because he's about to go and kick the Chiefs' ass tomorrow with us, the Detroit Lions. Defense, I mean, they could lose every single starter and it'd still be good the next year. They lost Jack Campbell, Lucas Van Ness, Riley Moss, all going to the NFL, all highly drafted guys. This team is still loaded. Ryan talks about Cooper DeJean all the time. He's the next big secondary star. You've got 2 big nasty defensive tackles in Logan Lee and Noah Shannon. You've brought in Nick Jackson from Virginia at linebacker. He'll be the best player on defense in this team very quickly. You pair him with Jay Higgins. He had 16 tackles in week 1 alone. They're just a talent factory on defense. Iowa State, they were a bit of a misnomer last year. They were 4-8, but 6 of those defeats were by a touchdown or less. And like Iowa, great on defense, offense sucks. In the Big 12, they ranked last in total offense, last in scoring, last in downfield completion yards, and last in rushing. And this was the team that produced Breece Hall 2 years ago. Hunter Decker's the quarterback. His career's fucked because of gambling allegations. He's out. So redshirt freshman Rocco Becht got the start last week. He went 10 of 13 for 113 yards and 2 touchdowns. Got a rushing touchdown. Didn't turn the ball over. Good start from the young man there. Offensive line was terrible last year, but they've got 4 starters back. The 5th position at centre is filled by an understudy who's taking the position, so it's no new guys, but it's going to be a lot more experienced and in sync, so hopefully you would think that will drive improvement alone. They've got a good pair of running backs in Jarrell Brock and Cartavius Norton. Receiver room's really good. Xavier Hutchinson, the big receiver, was the only guy they lost, but they brought in Jaden Higgins from East Kentucky. He had 10 touchdowns and 800 yards last year, a star on the FCS scene. Defense is just as elite as Iowa's. They were 4th in the nation in total defense, ranked 1st in the Big 12 in yards allowed, passing yards, scoring defense, run defense. Secondary, you've got TJ Tampa, Bo Frailer, Miles Purchase, Jeremiah Cooper, who's got 2 picks already this season. D-line at tackle, you've got Isaiah Lee, J.R. Singleton, Tyler Onyedim. Maybe one of the best run defenses in the Power 5, those 3 tackles. Concern comes at edge. You lost Will McDonald, you lost your other 2 leading sackers, but if you can replenish them, defense is going to be awesome. I mean, you can describe these 2 teams really easy, Ryan. Rubbish on offense, great on defense. Might be a slugfest again. Iowa are on the road this time, though. Who have you got?
I think this will be comfortably Iowa. I don't trust a redshirt freshman coming up against an Iowa defense. I think they're going to make a life hell for that kid. And they will do just enough on offense. Cade McNamara is experienced enough to traverse this game. Ugly, low scorer, but yeah, I think it's the worst kind of defense to play for a redshirt true freshman. Like I say, it's just not what you want to see in front of you. They're going to harass him.
I think that's where I struggle with it. I do want to bet Iowa State. They're at home, but Iowa have the experience here. I would not be surprised if they lost, and I don't think I care, but I'm going with you. Iowa sweep in this one. Next up, Marshall at Eastern Carolina. Now, we've covered these 2 teams already, so you can go check the previews for these if you want to check a bit more about them. Marshall are coming in after that really narrow 21-17 win against FCI's side. Albany, Eastern Carolina, people have seen, manhandled by Michigan in a 30-3 loss there. Marshall have got the more complete team this year. in terms of returners. Eastern Carolina are dealing with a lot of losses there, and they didn't look great week 1, but it was a mismatch. Who have you got, Ryan? Marshall at Eastern Carolina?
Give me Rasheen Ali. I think he'll run all over East Carolina. I think Marshall have learnt a lesson. I think they'll take care of business this week. I just look at East Carolina, I just look at all the loss. I feel like a loss adjuster. That's all I can see. I just don't see them replacing any of it.
Right, yeah, I'm with you. I think Marshall are going to go there. They'll control the clock, get it on the ground. Rasheen Ali will be a stud. Marshall sweep for us there. Right, we've got a few more to do. Temple at Rutgers. Now, I've deliberately thrown this in there because I'm going to make people think about this one. Now, this is Group of 5 versus Power 5, and the Group of 5 team is on the road. Temple, we talked about them in the American preview, but just for those of you who didn't, led by E.J. Warner, son of one Kurt Warner. He had a tremendous season last year, 3,000 yards, had a few interceptions and fumbles, but he was a true freshman last year, came right in. First week of the year, 292 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Guy did all right. I mean, he was 28 of 49. Akron pushed them really close. And actually, I'll give him his dues here because they were down 21-10 at the half against a really bad Akron team. And they shut him out in the second half, and he led some critical game-winning drives for them. So you know we like Temple, you know we like Stan Drayton. Rutgers we haven't talked about. They're led by Greg Schiano. Year 4 of his second stint with them. Again, another team with a horrid offense and a good defense. So you take out the 66 points they scored against Wagner last year, the FCS team. They averaged 13 points per game. They only went past 21 points twice outside of that Wagner game. Gavin Wimsatt is the quarterback. He's been at Rutgers a few years, but he's still not the truly established number 1 there. Offensive line, it's highly experienced, but few star names in there. Needs to get better in both disciplines of the game. They were only averaging 3.5 yards per carry on the ground against a Northwestern team who's lost everybody. So not a positive start from them despite winning. I mentioned Rutgers nearly shut Northwestern out 24-7. So that was them. Rutgers were 4-2 last year when the offense scored more than 16. That just shows how good a job the defense did. They got lit up by the Big 3, Penn State, Ohio State and Michigan, but outside of that, against regular opposition in the Big 10 and the G5, they were really good. They've got the star guy Mohamed Toure back. He missed last season due to injury, the linebacker. He made a successful return, had a bunch of tackles and a sack. Secondary's good. They've got Max Melton, Robert Longhorn at corner. They've got a couple of good edges in Wesley Bailey and Aaron Lewis. It's a decent unit against Big 10, middle of the pack Big 10 teams and G5 opponents. They're going to cause some problems, but they're coming up against the Temple team, Rye, who know no fear, with a young, no longer freshman quarterback who believes in himself and will burn you. Can Temple go on the road and upset Rutgers this week?
See, I picked Max Melton in the pre-season watch team, and he actually had a pick. He actually made some huge plays. He looks like one of the best corners in the Big Ten. I'm going to say no, because I trust that Rutgers secondary and that linebacking core. I trust them, and I think they will trump E.J. Warner. I think the offense for Rutgers will blow, but I think their defense will keep them in it long enough, and they will eke out a potentially ugly win. I'll take Rutgers just.
See, I'm going to let my heart overrule my head here. I'm going to go for Kurt Warner's son, EJ, and I'm going to go for the Temple Owls to cause the upset against Rutgers there. Right, let's move it on. James Madison at Virginia. Now, this is Group of 5 at Power 5, and in the Pitwatch League so far, everybody's picked James Madison. James Madison coming after a 38-3 win against Bucknell. Virginia had their ass handed to them 49-13 by Tennessee. I actually thought Virginia were very good in this game for the most part. Got a little bit away from them at the end, but I thought the defense was good early against Joe Milton. I thought the offense did some good things before stalling in critical situations, but this was a big gulfing class. I actually was more impressed with them than not after this game. James Madison we've talked about in the Sun Belt preview, so if you want to see more about them, go there. Virginia we've not talked about, but they're heading into year 2 under former Clemson OC Tony Elliott. Went 3-7 in year one. I mean, this was just a rough year for Virginia altogether. He was already rebuilding the program from a very low base from before, and then halfway through the season you had that horrific shooting deal on campus. 3 of their players lost their lives, and it ended the season prematurely for them. It was absolutely horrible. This is going to be the first time they've played at home since that tragedy. They've named it in the players' honour. It's the UVA Strong Day that it's called. It's going to be in the honour of these players, and this is a team that's rebuilding not just on the field but emotionally as well after that game. And he's taking different approaches rebuilding it. The offense has got a ton of help from the portal. The defense is building from its recruiting class and the guys who started last year. The offense was last in scoring in the ACC, second to last in turnover margin, so the problems are apparent. They don't score enough, they turn it over too much. Quarterback Brennan Armstrong's gone to NC State, so they've got former Monmouth starter Tony Muscat. He's the new guy, but he's dealing with a shoulder injury at the minute. He is day to day, so it may not be him this week. They do have Clemson transfer Kobe Pace back at running back. He missed last year due to injury, but he's a big signing for them. He was back this weekend. He ran at over 5 yards per carry against Tennessee. You put him in front of a group of the 3 leading rushers coming back from last year, and they've actually got a really deep running back room. So if the O-line can block for them, they've got an end on this game. The left-hand side of the offensive line transferred out. Jimmy Christ, they've bought in from Penn State. He's the 6'7" tackle from them. They've bought in the 300-pound Houston transfer, Nana Ugana, to fill in the gaps there. The wide receiver room, all new, may take some time to acclimate there for them. The defense is really good last year. They averaged less than 24 points per game given up and 358 yards, which is great, and it's nearly all back. The only changes you've got are at corner. Fentrell Cypress went to Florida State, Anthony Johnson came to the NFL, but they've bought in some good transfers. Malcolm Green from Clemson, Tavon Kyle from Iowa State, so you've done well there. The only other big loss was the linebacker Nick Jackson, who we just talked about at Iowa, but they've got depth in that room, so it's the offense they've got to fix. James Madison at Virginia, right? People in our chat are saying the G5 upset's happening. Do you see James Madison winning this one, or are Virginia going to win it on the day? It's got to be an emotional day for them. Figure it will pump them up a bit. Who you got?
Yeah, it's either going to pump them up or it's going to be too much for them. I don't know. It's just a Virginia quarterback situation for me. I just have no faith in it. I lost faith in Brennan Armstrong, and they look even worse without him. Like I say, now they can't even nail down their own starter, so...
Who have you got? Oh, so you got James Madison, sorry.
No.
Oh, you got Virginia.
I'll go Virginia, the defence, and I think they'll rise to the occasion.
Yeah, I'm picking Virginia as well. I think, the stars will align for them that day, so...
If you lose, I won't be surprised. But
no, I won't. So, but yeah, more hope than hope there. Brent goes, I want to pick Rutgers, but I'm going with Kurt's kid, and then says I'm not allowed to agree with him. You're agreeing with me, Brent, so it's not the other way round. But we can agree every now and then, it's not a bad thing. Right, let's get through the last of these because we've been on forever. UConn at Georgia State, right, we've talked about both of these. UConn actually looked pretty good last week. They lost 24-14 to my Wolfpack, but we struggled with them. The quarterback situation's a bit dicky, but the team still looks really good, and they competed with us big time, and we're a step up in opposition for them. Georgia State nearly got scalped by Rhode Island, gave up a lot of points there. I feel I'm picking UConn for this because I think their defense is better, and Georgia State are going to struggle to put points up on the board. What have you got, Ryan?
I can see a UConn upset here, yeah. If you lose 550 yards to Rhode Island, your defense is not going to fix that in a week. It can be exploited.
Yeah.
There's gaping holes to be had there. So yeah, UConn can. They won't have to score as many points, but there's no reason they can't replicate that.
No, not at all. We've got 2 more. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We do. Purdue at Virginia Tech. Now, I've not talked about either of these, but we've been going a while, so we're going to do the things here. So, obviously, Purdue, shock loss to Fresno State at home last week, 39-35. Virginia Tech coming out to good old Enter Sandman as they did, beat Old Dominion 36-17. I'll never tire of seeing that entrance at all. But Virginia Tech have been hit and miss for years now. Purdue are going to be looking to kick someone's ass in retribution for last week. Can they do it at Virginia Tech, or are Virginia Tech going to do a double on the homestand?
No, Purdue will bounce back. Their offense will be fine. Like I say, it'll be the defense. But yeah, they'll have to come back. And they've got to address it quickly.
Yeah, I'm going with the Purdue upset as well. So sign us in for a Purdue sweep. Brent agrees with us and says Virginia. Brent, stop agreeing with me so much, it's concerning me. And then the last one, I had to end with them, Ryan. Oklahoma State at Arizona State. Oklahoma State, I mean, they did not look good this weekend. They beat Central Arkansas, but it was only 27-13. I mean, they should be beating a team like Central Arkansas by a lot more than that. Arizona State also struggled against FCS opposition, as we mentioned, 24-21 winners over Southern Utah. Two teams who started really slow. You've got the advantage on them, been at home. You gonna bet on your boys this time, or are you going with the Cowboys?
I'll take the Cowboys. I don't like the Arizona State defense.
Right, so I'm going to use insider information here. Do you think Arizona State have no chance in this?
I think Jaden Rashad is about to face a serious uptick in talent, and his debut is good, but this will be a different test for him. So yeah, I'll take OK State.
Okay, I'm going with the inside man here. I will go with Oklahoma State as well, and if Arizona State shockers, you will hear about it on this show next week. Brent goes UConn, that right guard is something else. I've made Brent a Christian Haynes fan. What can I say? Christian Haynes is special. He's going to be an NFL talent one day, hopefully, for the Lions. Right, that is everything. Thank you very much to everyone who's joined us this evening. I know we've been through a lot, but when these reviews come around, we try and talk about as many of these teams as we can, get some of the info out there. It's been a terrific week. Upsets, near upsets, big rank wins, teams getting demolished, head coaches already on the hot seats. It's been good fun. I mean, in terms of the other games this week, it's a lot of matchups against the big teams are on the scrub non-cons at the minute. I don't think there's really anyone who I foresee having many issues. Let's maybe do quickly before we go right outside scalp that we think. I mean, we were wrong last week. I bet Virginia, you bet West Virginia, and that didn't happen. But Georgia at home to Ball State, Michigan at home to UNLV. Hang on. This is Alabama and Texas. I didn't put that in there because I don't believe in Texas. I think they had the chance last year and they screwed it up. But is there an upset for Texas, or are they screwed? Because game day's there this week.
I think Texas will do really well, but I think they probably fall short.
Okay. Say Georgia at home to Ball State, Michigan at home to UNLV, Ohio State at home to Youngstown State, USC at home to Stanford, Washington at home to Tulsa, Penn State at home to Delaware, Tennessee at home to Austin Peay, Notre Dame are on the road at NC State, Utah are on the road at Baylor, Oregon on the road at Texas Tech, LSU at home to Grambling, Kansas State at home to Troy, I might put my upset there, UNC at home to App State, I think I've upset them before. Oregon State at home to UC Davis. Oklahoma at home to SMU. Duke at home to Lafayette. Colorado at home to Nebraska. And Clemson at home to Charleston State. Anything screaming upset there for you?
Not off the face of things, no.
I'm going to say NC State can beat Notre Dame. I'm sticking with my Wolfpack there. But if you're going for a real out there one, who did I have? I had No, I don't think I do have one. Nebraska not beating Colorado?
No.
We're on the Dion hype train now, folks. Thanks ever so much for joining. We really appreciate it. Next show's tomorrow, start of the Detroit Lions season. We're facing the Kansas City Chiefs at Arrowhead. Join us as the Lions go there to kick their ass. Matt and Ash will be doing the commentary during the game. Live reactions online if you want to join us. If you want to join me, I'll be on the Twitter feed doing my tweet stream, so come and interact with me on there. all good fun. Me and Ryan will be back this time in a week for next week. We may have a special show before then, trying to arrange it, but we'll see. But yeah, thank you to all. You know where to find us, Roar of the Lions UK, all over the internet, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, all that good stuff. Don't forget to like and subscribe, like the video. You got any questions for us on the College Pod? If there are players you want us to look at, position groups you want us to look at, we will do it. Just let us know, and we will do the work there for you. Thank you all. Have a great day. Enjoy the Lions game tomorrow. Let's go One Pride. Screw the Chiefs, screw the Bears, screw the Packers. We will see you soon. Bye-bye.